Evening, folks. Welcome to a live show. Joining me today is my brother. We are going to be discussing some.
Hey.
Yay! We're going to be discussing. We're here to suffer through a little bit of this. So Pine Creek got up to some shenanigans down by the river. Randall Rouser had this debate over on Braxton Hunter's channel, which I think is called. The debate was called "How Should Christians View Donald Trump's First 2 Months in Office?" I would say, like Christians
Now,
viewed the Romans when it came to lions, but maybe
now,
that's just me.
now, real quick, for those who aren't familiar with the characters, Randall Rouser's the one on the far right.
Yes.
Braxton Hunter's the one on the far left. Who's the one in the middle?
His name is Josh Klein from Free
Okay.
Thinking Ministries.
Okay. I know it's Bridge the Divide is here. Hi, JL.
He is. He's first. Good to see JL. He gave himself a medal. I didn't even know that was a thing. Well,
I didn't know that was a thing either, but it's good
my
to see that
my viewers have to do that for themselves because I can't provide that kind of assurance. I don't know.
Leave it to a pure social justice warrior to give himself a prize.
That's not fair.
I'm just joking.
He stole from me, is what he did. That was my prize. He took it. All right, so
don't mind me, folks. I'm festively plump on wine.
Yeah. So this one, the reason that I'm interested in this is because Doug kind of goes old, unhappy pappy in a lot of his stuff. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Randall Rouser triggers him. And I'm going to keep saying this quite frequently because Randall Rouser once triggered Doug and Doug admitted to it. And that weakness,
really,
to me, that was like a bucket of chum to the shark in Jaws for me. I was just like, holy sweet. Yeah, Randall Rouser, according to Doug, once made him so offended, so angry that he admitted that he wished him harm. So
really?
So anytime I hear it, I think Doug later on, I brought it up again to make a point. He said, I don't remember saying that. I'm like, he's like, when did I ever say that? I'm like, you said it to me in a conversation that we had, I think on my channel. Maybe it was on his, but it was one of those.
Oh, that'd be a little bit of interesting. Where's Spooky Bed here? Spooky, go find. Spooky used to. I remember when I first got it started. It was Spooky Bed here, and I can't remember the other person, but there was always the two of them, and I'd be like, "Go find it," and they would always find it like quick, fast, and in a hurry, and I would be like, "Go find it."
No,
get it.
I try to keep things light and breezy. I don't make anybody snap to and fetch me things. I think they expect me to do my research, even though I'm completely incompetent.
No, no. They seemed overly Spooky Bed here, and this other person seemed very enthusiastic about helping me find shit.
So, just jumps off his perch and flies across London.
Well, like I said, it happened over time, and then when I realized that they were doing it, then it just became something that I would just abuse, like pretend to abuse, like, go do it. You guys have got all the answers. Find it for me. You know, that kind of thing. But anyway.
Well, Vanguard Shield says, hello all from the greatest Canada. Yes, greatest Canada. Greatest in maple syrup.
The 51st state.
Soon to be our 51st.
It's the 51st.
Just as soon as we recognize DC. See, that would be a great bargaining tip with Donald Trump. Like, Donald, look, we're flattered that you think that we could be 51st, not first, but you're 51st. So we'll take that as charitably as we can. But there's this little issue about Washington, D.C. You make them a state, will gladly accept the humble position of 50 deuce as long as you make DC a state first. And then just watch him walk out of the place and anger, vomit, just Godzilla his ravioli all over the place.
I'm just gonna put this out there, and maybe I'm off by saying this, but I think that if J.L. Warren wants to join, since my ignorant ass is here, if he wants to join, I think it would be perfectly fine to ask him to join.
JL, if you're interested, I could send you if you're still here, I could send you a link, but he might be listening to this while editing.
Yeah.
If you're interested, hit me up on DM. I'll over on Discord.
I like bouncing things off J.L. Warren. I like his style. So, but sorry, don't want to.
Yeah, actually, let me do that right now. Let's see.
If you want to cancel that, that's fine. I just figured I'd throw that out there because I was like, well, if I'm in here, I think Jail Warren's. I'd like Jail Warren's. If anybody's not subscribed to Jail Warren's Bridge to the Divide channel, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I watched that one that he. I don't know if it was his newest one, but the one that he did about the that kind of soft face guy. Looks a little bit like a miniature JD Vance from. He was a Seventh Day Adventist.
The Seventh Day Adventist. Yeah, I'm blanking on his name. That pastor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those damn Seventh Day holders.
All right. So let's get into this and see what kind of shenanigans he's going to get up to. Jail, if you are watching, I did DM you the link. If you want to join, no pressure. You don't have to. Yeah. Elbows up, indeed. Canada got greater when Doug left. But do you know where he ended up? All right. It's too soon for that. God equals.
He ended up in Arizona. Isn't that kind of like the?
He did say to the detriment of the USA.
Kind of like the ass crevice of the United States. Isn't that like where all the shit slopes down into Mexico?
Don't you think it's interesting? He was raised Mennonite, and he kind of he didn't reject the religion per se, but he did kind of reject the lifestyle because he never went back. Right? He came down here, got an education. He stayed involved in some Christians, but he's basically in a place that looks like hell in Star Trek.
Well, I mean,
that's not entirely fair. Tucson is beautiful.
I still think that in some cases, like, I mean, I think he is a redhead, and I think it's kind of funny because I'm you and I are like half redhead given our father's genetics, and here I am in California, and like I'm constantly battling the sun, and yet here's Pine Creek, and he's down in like Arizona, and it's like, okay.
No, he believes. I'm pretty sure that Pine Creek believes in hormesis.
In what?
Let me make sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. I believe the concept is hormesis, a biological phenomenon where a low dose of a substance or stressor that is typically harmful at higher doses can have beneficial effects.
Isn't that holistic? Or no, that's the opposite of holistic.
It's like it's a pseudoscientific kind of position. The idea is like a little bit of, like if you get too much stuff, then you get leukemia. Yeah. But if you get just enough, you become a superhero. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Gotcha.
Like,
okay.
This is probably in a gated community of Oro Valley, Tucson. Well, now I know to ask him that. All right.
I don't know where. No idea. I've been wanting to visit Arizona sometime, but mostly I still want to just see Las Vegas. I've never been to Las Vegas, so
lived there, did that. The people from Arizona that showed up, you could tell.
Really?
You could tell that. Yeah, you could. After I was only there for 4 months, and I was just a guest student out there for the fall semester. Yeah, after a while, like on planes and stuff, because I flew back a couple of times. Yeah, you could tell when they were like, oh, okay.
You could tell the people from Arizona coming.
Everybody from Vegas is from all over the place. You got people from Hawaii, California. Sure. Everybody's from everywhere. And I was in and around the UNLV, so it's a campus area. So. But when you ran into people that were from Arizona, especially if they'd been there for a long time, there was a particular kind of weather-beaten quality to them. Like there was this older couple on a plane, and they were both incredibly grumpy. I'm not saying they were grumpy because they were from Arizona. I'm saying that they made Arizona grumpy because they were that grumpy. But they both had the skin texture of biltong. And if you know what biltong is, look it up. Biltong. It is I believe it's an air. It's an air-cured South African jerky.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a form of jerky.
Yeah, the dude's nose was like it looked like a piece of wood.
Hey, we got Captain Desk here from Mike's channel. Mike from the Atheist Experience.
All right, so let's get this.
Or Answers. I'm sorry, not the Atheist Experience. Answers in
Atheism.
Mike Berzanski's. Am I pronouncing?
Myron, you screwed it up again.
Monetized, but I don't want to see this guy like try to flag me because I'm playing his low rent intro.
And I had him.
No, that's
Joaquin Root or whatever his name is that did that song. But let's get this going.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think he has that on his channel that you can use that if you like cite it in your description or something like that.
That's generally polite anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
A McFlurry. I was eating a McFlurry while debating the guy on the far right for you guys. That was fun.
McFlurry.
That was years ago.
He was eating a McFlurry during one of his. I wonder if that was the discussion where he got good and worked up. Maybe the McFlurry got his blood angy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But he was on since. Yeah, we made up. He likes me. He loves me.
Who loves him?
He's saying Randall Rouser loves him.
Oh, Randall Rouser loves it. Oh, okay.
Yeah. He said that so somebody's talking about this in the live chat. They're like, wait, didn't you guys have like a falling out? Like, yo.
Because I'm a Canadian, he's a Canadian. But now I'm a U.S. citizen, and I'm not so sure he likes America anymore because what Trump's doing.
I almost heard empathy in the tone of his voice, but he'll squash that like he's drowning a baby in a bathtub. Grover Norquist style.
No, I don't think Trump
His
really
own
wants
baby?
candidates.
His own baby.
In Grover Norquist's case, the baby is the government. So I assume that it's a baby from a person of color.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, Grover Norquist is a piece of shit. Come at me, Grover. Your first name is fucking Grover. Fuck you.
It's too liberal. It's too feminine. But by the way, this is the main difference between conservatives and liberals.
Hey, welcome, Maya. Good to see you. Welcome to a non-monetized sweary episode. Jay's here. Yeah, I'm going to be swearing a lot during this one. So
Yep. So am I, because I've been drinking a little bit. So have fun, Maya. Take clips.
she's already like hard pass.
It's, or progressives, I should say. Progressives are more feminine, and conservatives are more masculine.
What?
Yeah, this is his thing now. Like, oh, well, if you're a conservative, then you're masculine. And if you're a progressive, then you're feminine. Like, okay, what's a leftist? Like, oh, well, then you're progressive. Like, progressive in what way? Like, I want to outlaw the concept of private property. Feminine or masculine? I guess he would say, well, it's feminine because you want to outlaw it because sometimes owning stuff more than having more things than another person hurts their feelings. Like, nope, that's not it. That's not what bothers me. That can. What bothers me is when somebody as fucking stupid as Elon Musk has so much, and so many other people have to sleep on streets. Like, I'm decently well off. I'm doing fine. But listening to that guy just like blow spit bubbles with his face.
Yeah, but Jeff, I'm still waiting for that. I'm still waiting for that $5,000.
We're not getting that. At least not in real money. It's going to be in Krugerrands or something. Yeah, it's going to be in like Krugerrands. Like, why did you send me a chest of like?
I thought I was going to get that. I thought I was going to get that money. Like I was going to get that really great healthcare that I was going to get back in 2016.
Yeah. Maya says she's got a 5 fuck minimum in my streams. Did that fuck count as one of the 5 fucks you need for the fucks to be there? Or did I just do it? I think I just did it. All right, let's go.
Thank you, Maya, for all those fucks.
And that's the main difference on any issue. If you take the feminine type stereotype.
If you take the feminine stereotype and the mask. Okay, so this is now his grand theme.
On any policy, you're going to be a Democrat in the United States. And if you take the more stereotypical masculine view on something, on a policy, you're going to vote Republican.
Okay, which kind? Because one of the big campaign issues for Trump was no war. And back when I was a conservative, I was pro-war. Like regime change in Iraq, A-OK. Regime change in Afghanistan, A-OK. Caribbean, turned it into something totally different. Don't like Latin America? Pave it and put up a parking lot, if you get the song reference. This is kind of weird. Back when I was a conservative, I was in an unhealthy position of being kind of a libertarian when it came to social issues. But when it came to like international intervention, I was not a peacenik. I was
I'm just trying so hard to not sing that tune out. God
yeah,
damn it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I gotta do it.
But what he's talking about is like, well, if you look at it now, like these conservatives are just masculine and the progressives are just feminine. The conservatives now are a bunch of weird, twisted up, basement dwelling golem types. Like, You can't send any of these guys to. Imagine J.D. Vance going to war. If I pictured J.D. Vance trying to inspire the troops, I would imagine that he would dress in the exact same way that Sam Rockwell's character does at the end of Jojo Rabbit. That would be J.D. Vance.
Wait a minute. I never saw. I never. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I never saw Jojo Rabbit, but J.D. Vance was in war, but he was he was. Well,
I'm talking about in a position where he's some kind of grand leader and he's going to inspire the troops. Wasn't he like a PR flack or something? For like
yeah, he was in the PR. He was in the PR corps or something like that, or press corps or something like that. Yeah,
he's the bottom of the bottom of the cheerleader pyramid as far like okay.
Yeah, he escorted fucking people.
Yeah. So okay, so keep this in mind, folks. So we now have Doug's, if we ever needed one, Doug's complete holistic political worldview is that if you're a conservative, you're masculine, and if you are progressive, you are feminine. And it's and I don't know if that's a spectrum, or if there's like a purity test and you just trigger one or trigger the other. Like you could be mostly masculine, but then you're like, you know what? I don't think orphanages should be a thing. Wrong, cuck. Walk over there with the ladies.
But wasn't the idea of the abolition of slavery a progressive movement?
Yes.
So, if that's a progressive movement, is that feminine or is that masculine?
Yes.
Okay. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Like, I mean, it doesn't have to make sense. The contradictions are the point. So
okay, just throwing that out there. But anyway, food for thought, folks. Sorry.
That's a very simple way to look at it. I found this fascinating. This guy here is a conservative, I believe, Randall Rouser. His camera gets better.
And you can tell by the way, I mean, look at it. Look at the difference, folks. Look, Randall Rouser is on the far right. Josh Klein, they're going to be having these conversations in the middle. Old Braxton Hunter there, he's on the left. He's a pretty conservative dude too. I don't know if he's the same Braxton Hunter that he needed Christianity to keep from killing his father.
Isn't Braxton Hunter the one that they kept making fun of over the pumpkin thing?
I don't know if it was the pumpkin thing, but I'm pretty sure he was the one that attempted to kill his dad. Like he's got some murderous impulse. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the one.
Okay.
Maybe he's not, but
okay. Well, citations needed, but go ahead, folks.
But you look at Rouser and you look at Josh Klein, and you can just tell this one has the masculine energy, and this one is giving a whole Jane Fonda vibe. Right? Am I right? You can just see it. I'm just barely exaggerating here. I'm actually kind of surprised that Doug doesn't do this.
He's his name's Josh. His name's Randall. He's conservative Christian, progressive Christian. They might not call themselves that, but it doesn't matter. I'm calling them that. And this is some guy.
Well, hold on. Progressive Christian or progressive politically?
No, he doesn't think liberal Christians are real Christians because he's a moron. He actually cedes most Christian theology to the sort of like, biblical inerrantists, the biblicists and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. He just kind of even though they're cherry picking an enormous amount, they just happen to be in a position of being quite loudmouthed and easily upset. So, and because they take a harsh stance, I think that's why Doug thinks that they're probably in a better position. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, it wasn't David Wood that tried. It wasn't David Wood that tried to kill his father. Yes, I believe it was. But, and I'm not saying this to like libel or slander him. This isn't monetized. Wink. But he admitted to this. He had homicidal tendencies before getting right with the Lord.
Good idea for them.
Doug complaining about gender traits is so feminine of him. Real men don't need to complain. Not only that, but if you've ever seen his torso, he's quite gooey. I'm not saying this because I have any reason to judge. I am not as physically fit as I need to be. But Doug kind of looks like a squished down garbage pail kid, at least, here in the torso. He's a middle-aged guy. We get a little doughy. So when he's trying to say like, well, here's the thing, you know what? I might be physically doughy, but mentally, I will watch a pup. I will set a starving puppy on fire before I give it free food. It needs to work for me first.
Yep. He is all man up. He is all man up top. Yep.
Amen.
Guy.
I think he puts more product in that goofy troll poof than I've ever worn in my hair ever. Have you ever seen it like when it's dyed, like when it's freshly dyed and he's got like the stuff in it and it's kind of like sticking up like spikes? It's just like, dude, what is that? What are you doing with that? When he turns just right and you can see through the light and it's just like a weird succulent growing out of the top of his head.
I wouldn't go there, Jeff. You're wearing that goofy hat.
But I'm wearing it to protect people from my unsightly features. This guy is actually accentuating he's been in Arizona for so long that he's trying to make his entire scalp look like the geology of Arizona.
Jeff,
there's just a patch of shrub in the center of a bunch of arid sand.
It's the whole reason I'm not on camera, is to not fucking freak the fuck out of people.
We haven't made
name Braxton. Hey Braxton, how you doing, buddy? We go way back. We went to separate schools together. That's how far back we went, Myron. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start.
Why did the Orange Clown bash Zelensky's clothes, but not Elon's clothes? Actually, apparently he did. He called out Elon after people pointed out the discrepancy. I guess there were reports that Trump did say that to Elon, and then the next time there was a public thing. Elon was wearing just kind of a standard blue suit instead of his usual, like I don't know. He's trying to look like Jeff Bridges' character in Tron or something. I don't know what his deal is, but it's fucking dumb. Those hats are ill-fitting. You say what you will about what you think of the look of this hat. I don't think it's ill-fitting. Right? Shut up, Jay.
Start this, and I actually did some fact checking. It's so easy to review debates and then see all the places where people got it wrong. Actually, Randall got a lot of things wrong, but not so much Josh. Good job, Josh. You actually did pretty good.
All right.
1,000 pound points to Pony Boy Garfunkel for being here first, and your
Pony Boy Garfunkel is a deplorable scoundrel. I despise his very existence. I just want to say that for a record.
Very close to all expense paid trip to Circus and Las Vegas Strip. And don't worry about the gunfire that happened last week. I'm sure they'll fix that by the time we get there.
Well, thanks for having me, Braxton. And
uniquely American.
And thanks for having the dialogue, Randall. I appreciate it. Interestingly, this is not a topic that I'm overly excited to discuss, although I do talk a lot about political topics. I do have interest in, and
let's maybe slow this back down because I think he's got this turned up just a bit.
Yeah, he does.
Let's turn that back down to normal. Hey, ciao, Fabio.
Politics, foreign policy, all those sorts of things. Kind of been a hobby of mine for a lot of years, but I like to address theological issues.
I just have to say that there's nothing like getting a reflection of American politics from an Italian.
I love it. I love it. He sent right after they reported. I got word of the story about the security breach that the guy from Goldberg from the Atlantic getting that. I'm looking at that. I'm like, oh, that's going to be a big story. And I checked my Gmail. He's already sent me. Is like, hey Jefferson, check it out. Read this with a stiff drink. And I'm like, oh my god.
Hey Fabio. By the way, I'm drinking Italian wine. I'm all about being fascisti right now. Anyway, go ahead.
I told him in a response, I'm like, you just let me know when Italy starts accepting refugees from the United States for any reason, just for future reference.
I want a job at Ducati working 4 hours a day or 6 hours, maybe 6 hours a day.
It feels like 12 when you're hungover. Come on. You know that. I know that.
Oh, yeah, that is true. Yeah, if you're hungover, 6 hours is an eternity.
Not saying that. The Italians do not. They actually have a reputation for not drinking to public drunkenness, or so I've heard. Fabio can actually back that up.
But Jeff, public drunkenness has a nuance to it.
That's true. But
what we deem as public drunkenness here in the United States is not necessarily public drunkenness.
So what you're saying is,
the world.
So the Italians they put a bottle into one bottle into each person, but they kind of sink into their.
What I'm saying is those are true men, and they know how to work. They know how to work machinery. Fucked up.
Yeah. Yes, I have a free
they can produce
8 hours a day,
them
5 days a week. Well,
They can produce some fine. They can produce some fine mechanics being fucked up.
he's right. You're wrong. You guys in the U.S. drink way more than us. According to surveys, he's absolutely correct. Especially
What's that?
spirits. Fabio says you're wrong. You guys in the U.S. drink way more than us. That's true.
We do.
I actually had just Googled it. It was a thing that I was not in I don't think that we drink. Actually, no, we do. I think we drink more wine and more spirits than the Italians.
See, that's the thing. I was watching a video and somebody said that in other parts of Europe they drink way more. They're amazed that they think that U.S. has an alcoholism problem considering
It's the UK.
Yeah, but not necessarily Italy. I think maybe the Italians are better at moderation.
Yeah, there's like a social stigma. From what I understand, there's a big social stigma to getting rowdy and getting drunk. Like they don't like doing having a drink with dinner and taking your time and taking it easy. That's fine, but getting like lit and going out, but tying one on the town, that I don't think that they're quite about that.
Yeah.
So.
And in a sense, this is a theological issue because a lot of the political has become theological. So the question that's before us is, how should a Christian think about the first 2 months of Trump's presidency? It's a kind of a wide open question because the term Christian could be defined a variety of ways in our political landscape.
No, wrong. There's real Christians and progressive Christians, according to PineCreek's. So get it right, Josh.
However, I want to focus on what the Christian worldview says of the government and its authority, and whether or not it seems Trump's administration is executing the authority.
Wouldn't it have been the case that he should define like a generalization of what it is to be a Christian before? Maybe he's getting into that, but it didn't seem like he was getting into that. But that's fine.
The idea that they're going to have this debate and they're going to be like, "Hey, how should Christians talk about Trump's term or what he's done in the last few months or something like that?" Like, okay, how should you guys as a monolith talk about it? Like, you're not going to agree. There's a reason why you have as many denominations as you do. Alcohol is bad for you. I'm sticking to meth. I don't think that that's too far off in terms of like trade-offs.
I get it. It might be cheaper per ounce.
Yeah.
Governance well or poorly. I'm sure that Randall will no doubt appeal to the way things look in a lot of ways concerning public comments or policies, those sorts of things that seem objectionable in particular. And
yeah, it seems like there's something in the scriptures talking about fruits of the Spirit, and you can tell things about a person by the things that they do. I think Josh is just going to reduce that to, oh, well, Randall's just being superficial and reducing things to the way they seem or the way they play out in politics or something like. No, yeah. I don't think it's just going to be that. But let's see where we go from here.
Bring up a lot of emotion, but whether a policy seems objectionable or not is not the issue. The issue is whether the policy is morally justifiable and something that the
Randall, stop typing on your computer.
Ought to pursue as part of objective morality.
If it's objectionable, then it's just objectionable. What was he doing?
Hang on, I'll be right back.
That seemed like a contradiction in terms. He said whether or not something is objectionable and then whether or not it's morally justifiable. That seems kind of a contradiction in terms there. But anyway.
All right. Am I coming through? Ah, perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, the cable on this cheap headset here is getting it's kind of short in it. It has since I bought it.
Yeah, you're coming through fine.
Yeah, that whole thing is whatever point he was trying to make. But Doug got distracted by the whole.
Well, I got distracted by it because he said something about something being objectionable, and then he went to some kind of objective morality. The individual.
It's as if you can't figure out, like, okay, so I'm trying to figure this out. You don't have objective morality without the Bible. But you also don't have objective morality if you're trying to say that you're a Christian or you object to a president that is popular with certain other Christians. Like, wait a minute. I thought we had access to an objective morality. So why can't Christians agree on whether certain things that Trump does are bad or good?
Yeah. And so this will be curious because Randall Rouser is a Christian. So I'll be curious to see how this conflicts. But yeah. Go ahead.
In line with both the biblical understanding of government and our own country's outlining of the government's responsibilities in its founding and subsequent documents, I want to just express this. Romans 14 outlines the proper role of government as just governance, punishing that which is wrong and granting freedom to that which is right. And the rule of loving one another ought to be considered above all else as we look at policy. So our response to this sort of government ought to
I don't know if the passages from Paul about just governance are about governance from the state or about governance in the body of believers. But, I mean, obviously, actual Paul was not talking about trying to establish a long-form church because he believed that the end was imminent. But I've heard theologians and pastors use that expression. Hey, your camera's on.
I know.
Okay. Just look kind of weird because it's just a knee. That's all I could say.
Well, I was thinking at one point I'm just gonna split my legs wide open and just be the entire.
This isn't OnlyFans. You gotta give me some prep if you want to set up that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not producing OnlyFans videos.
Here we go.
You're gonna make everybody sick if you're gonna rock though. It's clipping pretty good too. Thanks, Talk Studio. I only pay a premium for your better plan.
That's not clipping too bad.
Alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of our problems.
It's
to be submission.
Submission, right. That's a good point by Josh here. From the Christian perspective, Christianity is different than Islam in one main issue. Well, there's many issues, but on this issue, Islam has Sharia law. It actually gives step-by-step guidelines how a government should be run, how a society should be run.
Their government. It's a theocratic theological system. There isn't an alternative. They don't use that as a standard to judge any other government. Any other government is going to fall short. If it's not Sharia, then it's not a government. If you're a fundamentalist, Muslim and believe that.
But
and he's trying to say,
another...
Christianity doesn't have this kind of thing. Like, well, that's kind of true. They don't, but they try.
But isn't there another one? Isn't there? There's Sharia, and then there's something else. I thought there was something else. There's another.
I think I know what you're. I think I know where you're getting to, but it's we don't need to get into that. That's just
okay. Anyway,
well, let's see here, because Doug usually, this has been a thing I've noticed since before he even started taking his crap turn into politics more so, is that he started ceding more and more ground to just sort of accepting that the narrative of real Christianity was the inerrant biblicist, fundamentalist, harsh, exclusive, he doesn't believe in progressive, open-ended theism. Or that you could have a Christianity that was inclusive of LGBTQ plus individuals, right? As far as he's concerned, that's not. And as an atheist, he's like, hey, you can choose one of two things. You can either get on the plan that they want you to be on and do what they tell you, or you can just give it up altogether. And I fundamentally disagree with that. There's no reason why people who are inclined to believe in a higher power and maybe are in Christianity and are studying that kind of thing and are believers, but are members of the LGBTQ, can't negotiate meaning and purpose out of those documents the same way the fundies did. And Doug just basically says, no, the fundies were there first and they're the harshest and the nastiest. So got to give it up to them. You are either in the gang or you go and start something totally different. Just don't call it Christianity. Doug, no, you're dumb. That's if you watch any of Dan McClellan, Dan McClellan stuff. If you watch it, if you read any of the kind of Bart Ehrman's take, his textbooks on the New Testament, or John J. Callan's work on the Old Testament, you will not come away with this kind of blinkered, binary, black and white view of Christianity that Doug has. He has this view because of the people that he's talked to online, because he's been to YouTube University for too long. And he won't just, he's still matriculating. He won't just graduate. He's like Van Wilder. Just move on.
Christianity doesn't
Yeah,
have
Virillion
this
said
debate-
Sunni.
What's up?
The other sect that I was thinking of was Sunni.
Yeah. Well, he didn't say Shia. He said Sharia. He's talking about Sharia law. That was what Doug mentioned. But yeah, the two main sects are Shia and Sunni.
Debate is between a conservative Christian and a progressive Christian, and their view of Donald Trump and politics and how a Christian should respond and how a Christian maybe should vote. But really, as far as Christianity is concerned, God has given authority to all governments, even Hitler. In fact, I brought up that verse, Romans 13:1. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities. For there's no authority except from God.
What?
What he's bringing up right now, there's an apologetic for it, and I can't remember what it is, but there's an apologetic for what he's doing.
And those
the
that
idea
exist
that
have been instituted by God.
That even with Nazi Germany, that authority was vested in God. God actually was granting that. He's doing something that a lot of non-believers have done in the past, where they use that particular verse about.
Hey Jay, do me a favor before you continue. Shut off your video because your audio is clipping. I want to see if it clears up if the video is not playing.
Okay, how about now?
It's processing better. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
There's a bandwidth issue going on.
Okay, but there's this idea that, well, I'd heard this before. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was this idea that, well, oh yeah, so since there's this verse about God vesting the authority, and so all authorities that are in reality are, basically God approved. Nazi Germany would have been God. It was God approved, and I think that's what Pine Creek is going for. And I've heard apologetics that counter. There are apologetics out there that are counter it, but I bring it up, but I don't know the apologetics that counter that particular argument.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see them freak out because they act as if Kamala Harris or Joe Biden are in power for a certain period of time, that's a sign that God has removed his protecting hand from the people.
Yeah, that one too. Yep, I've heard that one too. Yep. But I thought it was interesting that Doug brought that up, and I'm like, yeah, I've heard that done before, Doug, but there's an apologetic for that too, and I just don't remember what it is. So go ahead, sir.
So the reason why Trump's in power, according to the Christian worldview, is because God ordained it, decreed it, willed it.
Yeah, but that was the same reason that Joe Biden was in power, and also the same reason that Obama was in power.
Exactly.
2 terms.
Mm-hmm.
Christians are remarkably malleable when it comes to interpreting these verses this way. And again, I will point this out. The reason why it seems contradictory is because the contradictions are the point. And I'm just really looking forward to the contradictions that old Pine Nuts here gets into here in a second. So,
wanted it. Same with Biden previously. And
a lot of Christians were not willing to admit that Biden was the will of God. And there's another thing that he's forgetting to do.
Can you,
if you're consistent with this narrative, this apologetic, the way that Doug is describing it, then there's a very simple way to negotiate it. Trump is what happens when God blesses America's choices. Biden and Obama are what happens when God curses America's choices and actions. So he's inflicting a government upon the people because they've been bad. Again, that removing of the hand of protection, and then people get the righteous leader.
Isn't that kind of a problem with falsification? But anyway.
It's completely magical thinking, because it can, when you phrase it that way, it can work out any way that you want. Say that you say, well, now that we have Donald Trump and we're Christians, everything turns out great. And 2 years from now, he flips his lid. Let's say there's a conservative group that comes out, and they're a conservative Christian group, and they're very anti-Trump. And they come out, and Doug, the politicians that are aligned with any of the Republicans, and some of the Democrats are aligned with Trump, decide that they're going to use that as a means to dismantle the Second Amendment. Okay, so this president was supposed to be an example of God blessing us because we went the right way, but then he breaks bad and does something that clearly, well, that's against the Bible. That's against God's wishes. Well, that must have been something bad that we did too. What did we do, oh Lord, to for you to allow this wrath to be visited upon us? It's complete Old Testament thinking. None of it really matters. It's actually better if in the Christian, a lot of progressive Christians are just like, this makes absolutely no difference. If you accept the fact that your eternal life is secured by the salvation granted by Jesus Christ, it doesn't matter what government you live in.
I think it's interesting. I'm reading this. Fabio says it's like when there are fires in California and tornadoes in the Bible Belt, and then Daniel Cooper, and then almost like completing the thought, Daniel Cooper comes back. It's a theology of convenience.
Yeah. But I mean, the contradictions are necessary because this is more about coping than trying to explain it, and it's usually about trying to retcon or retroactively fix the position that you had so that you don't seem embarrassed. Like you've got like, hey, we turned to you and asked for an explanation for this, and you said that Trump was the guy to go to, and then things went bad. Or, you said that things would be better if it were Biden or if it were Obama. Now, how did things go wrong? Well, the basic example is like, well, economies can go bad, wars can happen, politicians can turn out to be something other than they represented. But when you have this kind of magical thinking built into it, you're like, oh, we didn't have the blessed one that we thought we did. Yeah. And that's where I don't think so. When these guys are even setting up a debate like this, how should Christians talk about Donald Trump? They should not talk about him as an avatar for God's will. Generally, I don't care if they're a fundamentalist or a progressive, open theist, whatever. They should not talk about Donald Trump as if he is some kind of figure of revelation, sent here by God to do God's will on earth.
But now justify that should.
Justify that should?
Yeah, justify the should. Why shouldn't that?
Because you can't apply that passage from Paul in Romans without contradicting it later on by having it applied to another leader. One person's blessed leader is another person's prosecutor. The only thing you have to do is say, we're persecuted right now, therefore God removed his protecting hand. Shit's gone bad. That means everybody screwed up. No, they didn't.
Okay.
Because obviously the bad people got away with something, right?
I just didn't want to leave that hang.
Yeah.
But yeah, you justified it. You justified it just fine. Go ahead.
Christians' response is submit to it because God has put these people in power over you.
So what has Trump sought to do in the first 2 months of office? And as far as I can tell, he has sought to punish evil, grant freedom for the good. He has eliminated DEI-based policies and governmental programs that favor.
How does that punish the evil? What's the DEI thing? What is that? Why is that a problem for God?
How is DEI evil? That's
yeah. He's trying to say like, well, he's sought to punish evil, but with whom?
Yeah.
What was the evil that he needed to punish? Oh, well, he's ridding the country of all the criminals that came in here illegally. Did they? The last time I checked, they only got I think they were trying to average 1,000 a week, and I think that they've managed a couple hundred. Like they're way below numbers.
And maybe some of them weren't criminals until they came here.
Well, and that's the other trick too. Like, is a criminal a felon, or is a criminal somebody who gets a speeding ticket? Because a person who crosses the border illegally is only committing a civil infraction. That's the equivalent of a speeding ticket. But these people just want to believe if they came here illegally, they're just as bad. You know what they did next? When they do that, you give them an inch, they take Lake and Riley, don't you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, here we go. Like that does not track.
Favor immutable attributes over merit, that smuggle an intersectional philosophy based on critical theory, otherwise known as cultural Marxism or Frankfurt School, if you want to go back even further.
How's critical theory related to cultural Marxism?
Okay, so if you hear somebody say cultural Marxism, they're basically channeling the term cultural Bolshevism, which is basically another way of saying Jewish intellectuals or globalists And it was a way for wealthy people to say those people want to take our property and divide up the land and settle outstanding debts and basically make the majority wealthier and make us significantly cash poor. Obviously, that can't work. So you have to paint anybody that's for that as the devil themselves. And it helps if you can also tar them with being something that the public already doesn't like, which is Jewry. When he's trying to say like cultural Marxism, that's essentially like a fascistic, like when you hear somebody echo a phrase like that, that is like hearing somebody use the term virtue signaling without understanding what it means or understanding that they're doing it as almost as soon as they say it. Secondly, if they say critical theory, he got this right. He said critical theory, which is tied into the Frankfurt School. Cool, those are connected. What I doubt very much he can actually describe is what does DEI have to do with critical theory and the Frankfurt School? My guess is he would struggle to do that. But if he can just lump a lot of these words together and it appeals to enough people that have listened to Alex Jones or Kanye West when he's letting ketamine take the wheel, yeah, it sounds like, oh, okay, well, they're going to stop that foolishness right now. Well, those are just things that a lot of right-wing media turned into, trigger things to make your grandparents clutch their collars closer. Doug is terrified of critical theory. He believes that it's connected to the stuff, the DEI. They're basically synonymous. I've never heard him provide an accurate description of what critical theory is. When pushed, he will say it's feel sorry for ism. And that's not what it is.
Further, in his dismantling of DEI, he has eliminated diversity for diversity's sake. That's never a good idea. Diversity is not bad, but diversity for diversity's sake can lead to a whole host of issues.
Diversity for diversity's sake was a term concocted also by right-wingers to say that affirmative action and DEI are both the same thing, which are quota systems to force people from different backgrounds into the workplace, regardless of their their credentials and their merit, and to basically teach the rest of us the rest of us slobs who are entitled and don't question our biases a lesson. It's like that's all you took from anything that you got on DEI or affirmative action or any of these measures ever. Like the number one, and Josh is a conservative Christian, at least according to this debate description, so he's not going to care about this. The number one beneficiary of affirmative action was A, Black men, B, disabled people, 3, U.S. veterans, 4, white women. I think I may have started with A and ended with 4. The correct answer is white women. The number one beneficiary of affirmative action has been white women in the workplace. Almost all of this usually circles around to being something about misogyny. It did benefit other groups. It especially benefited veterans. It benefited people with disabilities, especially veterans who were disabled or had, were impaired in some either physical and in sometimes cognitive ways, especially in terms of gaining meaningful employment. It's interesting to me that Doug believes that we need to have a system, we need a culture and a system that believes in self-sufficiency, but then wants to constantly kick the wheels out from somebody who's trying their best to be self-sufficient, given the extra limitations they have, and pretend that anything other than that is communism. And if you give a shit about that, you're a girl. And if you don't give a shit about that, and you want to make sure that person gets kicked into the mud, now you're a real man. Like, no, you're more like Alabama man from, what was that from? Anyway, South Park.
He has reframed the orientation of government's agencies towards equality of opportunity rather than outcome, which is what the E stands for in DEI. Equity is equality of outcome, which is...
It is not. Equity is not about outcome. This guy's a dumbass.
based
Wait,
in
did he say
Marxist
equality?
thought, and
Wait, hold on. Did he
Equity.
say-
He said equity is about outcome. No, it's not.
okay.
It isn't. The idea behind it is that there's two ways of looking at it. One is we treat everybody equal and we give them just enough to kind of to get a little bit ahead, right? Equity is recognizing that, like, if we want to even the playing field, that some people need a little bit extra to compete on that same field. That's equity. It doesn't mean they're going to win. It doesn't mean that they're going to automatically just take the day. It just means that they're able, that whatever is holding them back, that extra thing keeping them from being self-sufficient, has been ameliorated to the point where they are now at a point where they can compete with another fully able-bodied individual. That's all it means. Equality would basically just get to the point where, like, okay, here's the thing. Well, legally, you're all the same people. So as long as we've got that straight, I don't care what else happens or the other individual struggles that you have. You're legally equal under the law. Fuckity bye. Like, equality just being, and equality is valuable if you're talking about it in the sense that equality is not about treating people as uniform. These guys will usually misrepresent equality as uniformity and equity as rigged.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure if he was equivocating between equality and equity, or I'm sorry, equity.
Yeah, and he's not equivocating with equity and equality. He's trying to say they've gone beyond equality and they've gone to equity, and equity is about guaranteeing certain people a positive outcome, a certain outcome, and that is not what it's about. It's about understanding that people, you can accept the fact that people are equal as in terms of like legal citizens of a country. Equity is about understanding the differences that can hold them back or possibly privilege them in certain ways in social standing, cultural standing, financial standing, occupational standing, political standing, educational standing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and classless systems, and he has eradicated a toxic inclusivity that saw a man named Rachel Levine pretending to be a woman as the Secretary of Health in the DHHS in Biden's administration. Those sorts of things are gone. I think that is objectively good. He has
Pretended to be.
It pretended to be, which is already a problem. Also, I love the idea that he actually used the adjective toxic inclusivity, as if inclusivity, inclusivity is already toxic to this kind of Christian. His Christianity is by definition extra exclusive. There's the saved and the righteous and the sinner. And even though they're supposed to have pity for the sinner and all that kind of stuff, I don't know if this guy believes in the elect, in what sense he believes in the elect. There are those that are getting paradise and those that are getting perdition. And they're obviously not equal. So inclusivity is always bad in the Christian mindset. Even though if you tend to be a more progressive Christian, you can always approach it from the fact, no, we are all sinners. We have all fallen short. That is the one thing that we have in common. Theology tends to make this concept a bit worse, especially when they start carrying it into these terms. So we'll see how Randall ends up responding to this in a bit.
I agree with everything Josh is saying here. For me, my biggest issues was immigration, critical theory, foreign policy. I never expected the Trump administration to do anything good fiscally.
This is a lie. Okay, so I jumped in when I heard this. I was listening. I heard that, and I jumped into the live comments, and I was like, really? You never expected him to do anything good fiscally? A few months before this, I haven't tried to track it down because it was in one of his longer live videos. I'm not sure who he was talking to, but he was having a discussion about Trump's first steps so far and his claim to whoever he was talking to. I don't know if it was Nathan or somebody else. I think it was somebody else. He said that he was optimistic about the effects that the positive effects that Trump would have on reducing the deficit. Not sure which deficit he meant, but the deficit. So a deficit. So he was optimistic at some point a month or two ago about Trump's leadership in regards to fiscal policy in the United States. Now he's saying, I never really had any high hopes for that. Okay. He may not have when he voted back in November. That is true. But he mentioned just a month or two ago in a live video that he was really getting optimistic about this. They're going after the debt. They're going after debt. They're going to cut stuff. They're using that Doge. The Doge guys are going in there and they're cutting out all the weeds and stuff. He thought that was great. But Doug is also blinkered enough to believe that every dollar cut from the federal government means a dollar in the pockets of some wealthy industrialist. And I can't help but break this to you, wealthy industrialists. That is not fucking true. If you own a grocery store and the government cuts all food stamps and food aid, you lose money. A lot of it. So that's just a reminder. Be careful who you call a welfare queen.
Wait, so he's looking forward to what? What was he looking forward to financially?
He said like a couple months ago that he was optimistic because he thought that things were going in the right direction under Trump with regards to reducing the deficit. He didn't say which deficit. I think he just meant total deficit. He was optimistic. I mean, it usually does under a Republican president. I don't know if they have those numbers yet. I mean, the fact that we're kind of like staggering towards stagflation, it's not going to be great.
Okay.
Fabio says, Doug was the one who was trumpeting about Trump's economic plan. Lots of exclamation points. Probably not enough exclamation points. Exactly, Fabio. When I heard that, my eyebrows like shot through my hat. I was like, wait a minute. You trying to tell me you didn't care about what you just wanted the immigration done at any cost, and you wanted the CRT or the critical theory, whichever one Doug is concerned about. Lately, he's just been saying it's the critical theory because he got that one video that he did on CRT got yanked by YouTube because he made it fucking racist. First, and as far as I know, it's the only video he's ever had pulled, but YouTube yanked his chain on that one. So now it's not critical race theory so much that he goes after. It's just critical theory in general, which is hilarious because I really do think he believes they're the same thing. But yeah, Fabio, I know that he was talking about this, but I can't point to the exact example leading up to the vote. But I know that after the vote and after the inauguration, I believe it was after January 21st, that he was talking about like he was optimistic about deficit reduction under Trump. So now he's trying to say, oh, I never had any. Like, you never did. Maybe before you voted, you didn't. But you definitely did right after he got sworn in. I know that for a fact. So you're not really phrasing this right. I guess we could be charitable and say, oh, maybe you didn't do it right. But if anybody can find me an example of before the election, before the vote, or before January 21st in the lame duck session of one of his videos where he's talking about how excited he is about what's going to happen economically under Trump. And now he's trying to say, you know what? I never was. I think that's cope. He's saying that now because the economy is starting to stink like a butt. So.
Although I am pleasantly surprised at the gutting of the U.S. federal government. I love it.
Not great for money people. I don't know why these conservatives do not effing get this. Just gutting the federal government does not necessarily. The only reason you can see it as being potentially good is because if you slash services from the public sector, you reduce their position as a potential competitor to private sector problem solvers. So, can't get food stamps? That's what advanced payday loans are for at 35, 40%. This is the kind of stuff that they want. They see money being directed, revenue being directed from businesses and individuals into public services and being spent to try to make people's lives a little bit better, or at least ameliorate it, kind of like put some pads in the fact that capitalism is something of a taint kicking. And then that's not enough for most of these money people. They see that revenue and they're like, I want that. If we could just get somebody in there to just slash the government so deep and so nasty that the government's incapable of providing any of those services, then the public only has the ability to avail themselves of whatever services the private sector allows, which I would like to remind everyone, the number one solution to dealing with desperate financial hardship is crime. Lots of crime. There's a reason from a national security, a domestic security position, you allow these types of positions, these types of programs to exist, because it reduces crime. It reduces desperation. If you get rid of them and you put people in a situation where they have nothing left to lose, including their lives in some cases, and only something to gain if they take crazy, stupid risks, often with other people's health and safety, they will do it. But hey, as long as they weren't on the dole, right, Doug?
I love it. And this is the main difference between masculinity and femininity. If you're a feminine type person, oh, those poor people, they're losing their jobs. Well, welcome to the real world.
Wait a minute.
A masculine
That's a
person
non
would say.
sequitur.
This is how the real world.
That doesn't follow. How
Do you hear
just
this?
do that?
You hear what he said, though? This is a common trope with a lot of conservatives, especially ones with kind of ossified thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, you got fired from your job. You didn't have guaranteed employment. Okay, I just want to bring this to...
Yeah, but how did he get to the conclusion that he just did? That argument...
Because he's a troll.
Okay. Okay.
No, he thinks that if you're masculine, then you're willing to accept what he's describing is essentially an unstable economy, a very unstable economy. So hey, you federal employee, you fat cats living off your $55,000 a year, kiss your secure job goodbye. The reason civil service jobs, the reason a civil service job usually pays a moderate amount of money, but usually provides an enormous amount of job security, is to keep people in a position to basically maintain bureaucratic consistency for services delivered to the public so that they function smoothly. The last thing that these guys want is for an efficient, like they keep saying this, well, No, we're not here to blow everything up. We want an efficient Social Security. We want an official Health and Human Services. We want an official, an efficient FDA. No, they fucking don't. Because if they did, they can look at the years of research that shows the hiring practices in those public sector ones lead to modest, safe, but overall consistent and steady improvements in service delivery, provided their funding isn't drastically cut during certain political regimes. During ones where they suffer an enormous amount of backsliding. The idea is to make the economy as unstable as possible, tell people, toughen up, buttercup. You know what? When I was working 3 jobs at fast food places, I didn't have a civil service oath that I took. Yeah, it's true. Do you know one thing civil servants can't usually do? They can't unionize. So if Doug is talking about this like, take that, federal employees, you're out on your ass in the private sector, go make it work out there. I would say, you know what? Doug's not wrong. He's onto something. That's right, federal employees. Get out there. Go work for Home Depot. Unionize the fuck out of them. Organize the shit out of them. And then see what they say about that. Then you'll know exactly what they meant. They're like, oh, well, they came here and then they used their rights and their free speech and stuff to then organize themselves into a giant group and then demand higher wages and shit. I wish they'd just stayed in the federal government with their tiny guaranteed wages as federal servants and left us the fuck alone. Thanks, Doug, for sicking this rabid horde of pissed off, energized social servants onto us who know how to fucking organize.
Okay. Well, that's what I was going to ask you is like, what does that look like? Like, what does he want?
It looks like it can look like that. Otherwise, what he's trying to say is like, hey, I just heard this exact comment through a friend. that was delivered to her from one of her siblings said the same thing. Oh, you civil servants are having a tough time with the job market. Oh, you can get fired now. Newsflash, cunts. You could always get fired from your federal job. You could always get fired from your state job. You could always get fired from your municipal job, your county job. Getting fired is a very real risk for anybody that works as a civil servant. It always has been. It's always been a myth. And the reason that it has been a myth is because it is mythology perpetuated by right-wing morons who are usually promoting some kind of fairy tale from capitalists and conservatives and morons, trying to say, like, they're protecting the weak and the stupid in those industries over there. If you got rid of them, those industries would really rip and roar. They don't want that second part. They do not want a public infrastructure piece to rip and roar. They want it to whimper and die and then be replaced by services from Amazon. That is what they are looking to do. They are going to equity, like fucking venture capitalize the fuck out of those resources, divide them up, and then turn it into a feudalistic system where they charge you rent. We could have been working against this stuff by turning things like internet into a utility. We didn't fucking do that. We let these fucking ISPs do that, continue to write laws enacting stuff like that in place. Even with private fucking energy concerns, the co-ops made them look progressive. In fact, some of the private energy companies make municipal and county co-ops. The way they talk about them, it's like they're talking about like a fucking gulag or something, or some kind of like hippie commune. It's insane. Most of this stuff works extremely well. And a lot of it, provided effort and attention and time, works better than private alternatives. But the trick to getting a private alternative to work is to sow chaos, which is what that idiot is for. The one with the cockatiel thing on his head. That's what he's to do. That's his goal. I think he started out in the hard sciences, but got seduced by finance, and now thinks that is the most.
But why? Why the chaos? What's the point?
If you dismantle those private concerns, right? Let's say that a person cannot rely on SNAP. They don't have food stamps. How do they get food on a Tuesday when they don't get paid until Thursday? They go to a payday lender. They need money in advance. They need some kind of supplement. They go and pay for the opportunity to get that money in advance. Or they start running up their credit cards. Either way, it's a way for the private sector to get more money. Health insurance, the exact same system. If there's no public mechanism built into place, the inefficiencies built into the paperwork make the healthcare cost more money, which drives up the profit margins for the bureaucrats in between. Not for the doctors that provide direct care, but for the paperwork companies that are sitting in the middle. The chaos, the inefficiency are the fucking point. In gray mess of thing,
I see what you're saying.
Make a fortune. Yeah,
it's all about finding. It's all about It's all fine. It's all about finding that niche. You're finding that way of leverage to gain the cost.
If you want an example of what I'm talking about, take a look at the efficiencies of. It varies from time to time because the VA goes through a lot of weird systems. But in the United States, just as an example, look at the VA medical record system and its efficiency in terms of providing care, or Medicare or Medicaid and their efficiency in providing care relative to a private medical health insurance plan. They are massively different in terms of efficiencies. If the goal is efficiency and savings, which guys like Doug claim are the point, you would establish, and national security, you would establish a national health plan. One plan. But they don't do that. You get national security, uniform care, efficient services, increased savings, better mortality and health care for your people. Stronger, healthier citizens, happier citizens, secure, profitable, defendable, right? They have more, they're healthy so that they can defend the homeland if necessary. You can make these arguments from a nationalistic position, But for some strange reason, the nationalist position has been completely infected with the position that these guys have, which is, no, the masculine position is to go it alone. They're fucking stupid.
Well, the private sector operates. You go to work one day and you find out you're fired or you're laid off. Federal workers are finally getting a sense of what that's like. And
when was the last time you heard, when you hear a story about, say, 2,700 out of 4,000 employees in a private job, a private company getting laid off is not considered bad news? I don't know about the rest of you, but if I saw that a company of 4,000 people cut 2,700 of them and then tried to spin that into something positive, everybody would accuse the spokespeople of smoking a lot of something. They'd be like, yeah, no. Their stock price would probably deplete. They'd probably end up getting gobbled up by some competitor or something. There's no way in the like he's trying to say, well, in the private sector, this happens all the time. Yeah, to an absolute cataclysmic failure. When you force it to happen on a private sector organization that has revenue, you just go in and decide, you know what, 5,000 people, bet you could do this job with 1,800 / They wouldn't behave this way with some of their private acquisitions. I don't even think Bain Capital was this hard on KB Toys. But he's trying to say, well, here it is, folks. Got to take your medicine sometime. No, we don't. No one should have accepted that. KB Toys should have sued the shit out of Bain Capital and back, but they couldn't because legislation written by Democrats and Republicans allowed that crap to happen.
I love it. And don't worry, they're not going to go hungry. There's food stamps.
There's food stamps for now. There's unemployment for now, Doug, you fucking prick. And if they take them, you call them a woman and say that they're weak. Fuck you.
Oops.
See? The smile? I really hope they get rid of the food stamps. I really want to see a former federal employee starving at my doorstep, said Doug.
Sought to enforce our nation's laws concerning immigration and the legal entry into the country. He has brought illegal border crossings to record lows and has deported a myriad of criminal illegal immigrants.
Actually, the record lows started before he got in. They even started slowing down before he won the election. So that's slightly incorrect.
That had no right to be here. He's also bolstered national security by forcing both Canada and Mexico to play an integral role in maintaining their own border security.
Yep,
Mexico had long since ceded control of the Mexican-American border to the cartels, and Trump's tariff plan forced Mexico's hand into wresting control back from the cartels.
Is this guy an expert on Mexico now? Jay, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, sorry. I know I've been ranting.
You've been on your tirades. I've just let you go.
Did you hear what this guy's...
Oh yeah, I've been hearing what he's saying. It's just it's the same thing I've heard from a lot of people. I just sit there and I don't understand the justification. The guy's a piss poor leader. Donald Trump's a piss poor leader. I already knew that before I didn't vote for him in 2016. I didn't vote for him the second time. Why? Because the guy's a twat. We watched him fudge up all sorts of shit his first term, and then we had Biden, and then we had we had the communist manifesto kind of thing come into fruition with Biden, at least according to some of them. And then all of a sudden now here we have Trump again, the great white savior or great orange savior come in. And now he's saying, oh yeah, free speech is back into play. And then they're like, oh, guess what? You can't say certain things, right? You can't have the Associated Press because the Associated Press won't won't acquiesce to the idea of the Gulf of Mexico being the Gulf of America. So, yep, can't have them anywhere around. It's just bullshit. Yeah, I've just let you go on your I could go on tirades all day long. I'm not going to add to it because I don't need to. It's just a bunch of bullshit. Anybody who voted for that moron is a moron, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, well, maybe not a complete moron. I don't know where their position was at. I don't understand how there were people who voted for him this second time around who didn't understand or didn't remember what happened during the first 4 years. He didn't bring around any kind of like complete change. There was no kind of revolution. There was no kind of like, oh my God, we are wholly fucking made complete by his presence as president. I don't know what they wanted. I don't know if they're thinking, well, maybe he just needed another 4 years in order to bring that into fruition.
To finish the job. Yeah.
To finish the job. But it doesn't seem to be that case now, because the party of free speech doesn't seem to be the party of free speech anymore. And given the fact that he seems to be contributing to a higher level of unemployment benefits being doled out for certain areas of the country where Doge has basically laid off lots and lots of people from their government jobs, it doesn't seem like a good start.
Yeah. I do want to comment to Fabio's, you are that close to Free Luigi. I've been that close for a long time.
To what?
He's like, lol, you are that close to Free Luigi.
Free Luigi.
Yeah. And probably not in the ironic way that Bill Burr is kind of half doing it. I'm probably at the Bill Burr level.
I don't get the reference, but that's fine. Luigi
Mangione, the guy that killed the CEO of United Health.
Oh, Luigi Mangione. Yeah.
Allegedly.
Trial.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. My pushback is a little bit more, less hard leaning left, I guess. Doug definitely here has swallowed the fucking Kool-Aid in the form of the pure concentrate. Nobody had to water it down.
He's drinking straight syrup.
Yeah. Well, he's not drinking straight syrup. He's letting his saliva dilute it.
Moisture. The hydration, the moisture, that's nurturing, and that's for women. He doesn't need that. He just needs the.
Well, he does. He needs that to wet his mouth. He can't use that to lubricate anything else. He just needs it to basically swallow the power.
He's been in the desert for a while. He probably just throws some sand in there, rolls it around.
I just know that it's interesting that I know of individuals who are critical, who are supposedly skeptics. They're skeptical thinkers. They tout themselves as being skeptical thinkers, and they voted for Trump. And it seems to be that the reason that they voted for Trump was for reasons that I still to this day have no idea why they did. Like, it's like you got 4 years of him before. What did you think that he would change this next 4 years? And now it just seems to think that they're like, huh?
It's perfect for people who have like the memory of goldfish. It's like I don't understand why these people are freaking out about like. We'll get into that in a bit. There's a part here where they start talking about like the basic issue of like the car ad.
I think it's vengeance. I think they're waiting. I think they want to see a Trump presidency where it's based on vengeance.
Yeah,
where Trump was a victim of the hard left and the DOJ being used by the Biden administration to go against him. And now they want to see the tables turned. Now they want to see, it's like a WWE match. Hulk Hogan's getting hit on the back by Andre the Giant with a fucking steel chair. Now all of a sudden, Hulk Hogan gets the Hulkamaniac. He grabs the chair. He's starting to gyrate. He rips the chair away from Andre the Giant, and he's
really getting into a lot of detail with this.
Dude, no, it's literally WWE mentality. Look, if it's wrong, if these people are thinking critically, if it was wrong for the DOJ, if it's intrinsically the case that it's wrong for a particular government party to use the DOJ or to use their political position to go after people that are against them or were politically against their ideas, and to just instead of just leave them alone and let them espouse their ideas and let them come at them with cogent arguments, right? This was wrong, right? This was wrong of the Democratic Party to use the DOJ to come after Trump and to try to convict him and other individuals for their political positions. Now here we have it. Flip the script. He's removing certain things. People can't say certain things. We need to impeach judges that don't agree with him. Blah, 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 blah. It's just the same thing in reverse. It's just, it's the Hulkamaniac story. It's now Hulk's got the fucking chair. Hulk's beating Andre the Giant down with the chair. It's stupid shit. If you want
It's the heel turn.
it is. It's the heel turn. If you want it to be the case that it is objectively wrong for any particular political party to use their positions of power to influence other agencies that are meant to be outside or basically as for checks and balances, and then say they're not using them for checks and balances, they're using them to focus on our political opponents. Now all of a sudden what Trump does is he comes in, he removes the checks and balances, and then he says, I'm going to use these particular things to go after my political opponents. And then you have these people going, yay, he's doing it. They're hypocrites. They're completely fucking wrong. They don't care about any kind of objective morality or any kind of objective ethic, in the sense that what should be being done in politics should be the case in all cases. No. Now that the tables have turned, now it's fine for Trump to do that in the case in which he's now in power. He can now go after people. They're basically saying,
I think that's why they're tolerating.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I mean, if they wanted that kind of stuff, that's not what they're getting, right? Like, because before he was checked by other like kind of neocons and stuff like that. Now they're not getting that. Now he's got a gaggle of weirdos that are content to see him.
No, I think that's what they wanted. I think that's what they were hoping for. I think that this was the strain. This was the 4 years of pull. And then all of a sudden, once Trump got in for this second term, that's where the fucking chains came off. And he no longer had to worry about these neocons and these people who are willing to sit there, like Chris Christie, who was willing to be skeptical, at least to some extent. And even like people like, what's his name? Like other people who just went, no, he's completely off the rails. He's completely talking out of his ass. Now nobody cares. Everybody wants him to just act as completely
that's what Nate's saying. Big ape strong. That's why they to own the libs. Yeah,
exactly.
They didn't vote based on principle or policy. Yeah,
yes.
No, and I agree with that. I think the problem was that for whatever reason, anytime somebody would bring up the fact, like I'm pretty sure you guys were motivated by racism, and they were like, "How dare you call us racist?" Like, okay, were you motivated by grievances? And they're like, "That's better."
If you were motivated,
holy shit! Like,
if you were motivated by, I don't want a very, very, very small minuscule of people in society to be able to compete in sports. Wink, wink. Trans females, and I don't want. And if that was your motivator, yeah, you might want to check yourself, because if that was your motivating factor for electing this particular guy without looking at the other things that he could or couldn't do, you're probably buttfuck stupid.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say, Maya, I did send you a join link. I'm pretty sure you kind of work late, so if you're just listening, don't feel like you have to join. But I sent you a link anyway if you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, send Nate a link too. I
did.
talking to
I was going to say that.
Cool.
Like, Nate, I sent you one as well if you want to jump
in. Apologies, folks. I'm coming off of a wine bender. I'm doing good, but I'm letting my brother kind of do the rants. And then I decided that since there was a lull, I would do my own rant. And I can tell you right now that this country, I'm looking at it like a complete clusterfuck, just waiting for it to basically implode in on itself, and just sitting there
Yeah.
and rubbing my hands together and going, hee. I'm glad I got my home theater system before the fucking economy bombed out.
Yeah, but you're going to be eating You're going to be eating only ramen in 6 months, and moldy bread.
Oh, thank God for fucking capitalism, and thank God for Costco. Thank God for Costco. I think they'll weather this.
Yeah, Dustin says these buttfuck stupid people still think that Trump is going to do no tax on tips, no income tax, and a Doge
Yes.
refund anytime. Like, I'm like,
Yes.
no, he's not doing any of that.
Thank you. Buttfuck is right. You are exactly right. These buttfuck people still think that. You are absolutely right. No, he's not going to do that. He was selling that shit like he was selling, I'll fix the economy. I'll make sure eggs drop down in price the first day. I'll fix the fucking war in Ukraine the first day. I'll make sure you have the best health insurance of all time. He's full of fucking shit. He is the used car salesman that can't even sell Tesla. People are bombing Teslas for a reason, folks. It's
But hang on, they're not bombing them. They're artistically enhancing.
No, Jeff. If they're using fucking Molotov cocktails, they're technically bombing them. But that's fine. We can discuss the fucking particulars of the narrative later.
Nate, so you can buy your semiconductors from PineCreek's old computer in his basement. No more wars invades Canada. Yeah. It's been great. It's been great.
I know, Jeff, look, I know why the American people, the American people are angry. I remember a couple summers ago, it got really hot here, and the air conditioning unit fucking failed on the HVAC system of my home. And I called someone to come out and fix it because my landlords were just like, well, we don't know. And I said, fuck that shit. It's going to get 100+ degrees today. I'm just going to get someone out here. And I paid $300 to have this company come out, and they fixed the problem. And come to find out, I did the same job just a month ago, and it cost me $30. That's why people are mad. Donald Trump's going to keep me safe from air conditioning companies from charging me $300, charge me to replace a fucking capacitor in my HVAC unit that only cost me $31 to replace on my own. You do understand
he starts a war with the company, with the
that's why people
that ends up.
I think that's why people are mad. They're mad at capitalism. They don't realize that capitalism, I don't think they understand that they think that the economy is directly, they think that the economy, what the economy that it is that they're dealing with is directly representative of the president that they have in office, without realizing that the economy that they're dealing with is regulated by our economy, is regulated by our government, but not necessarily 100% controlled by it.
Right.
I can now do at least 4 levels of HVAC repair on my system that would cost me about $800. I can now do it for about $60. And that's just through YouTube videos. And so what happens is people start realizing, oh my God, I could have replaced this capacitor. I called this company up and they charged me $300 to come out because I was completely ignorant of how to replace a capacitor on an HVAC unit.
Hang on, this story is, hang on, Jay, I don't mean to offend you here, but your story is starting to take this like Abe Simpson, so I put an onion on my belt kind of thing. Nate just joined.
Sorry. I just had to keep going because it is incredibly fucking retarded. People don't realize that they're getting angry because of their own ignorance. They're angry because they're ignorant. They're paying too much for things that they don't realize that they're paying for.
No, but that's actually been kind of a That's been kind of a neoconservative position before that. Look, you would, that's actually kind of a liberal position. If you're a more savvy consumer and you know how to navigate the tricks and traps of modern American consumerism, you'll be less dejected when you go into an election, right?
Sure.
But the whole point of having something like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was to stop that
Nathan,
kind of
nice to have you, man.
trickery. So
sorry. I'm a bottle and a half deep into Italian red wine. I put it up.
Bottle and a half.
Yeah, I drank a little too much.
I'm gonna cut you off. I'm gonna cut you off. I'm gonna let you go because the bandwidth is getting weird with three people in here.
Don't kick me. I'll just mute. I'll mute. I'm fine.
Okay, if it keeps clipping, because it's like clipping for me and for at least on my side of things. So if it does, I might have to remove you. Okay,
I'm sorry. I can't help it if your Lansing broadband is so bad.
No, it's not my broadband. It's this app. It's because it's a web based one. So I don't know.
You're using Starlink.
Tell Nathan.
We'll
tell Nathan to do exactly what you told me to do. Turn off his fucking camera.
Oh, yeah,
but Nathan has a lovely face. What are you talking about?
He does have a lovely face. I don't. I agree.
Thank you.
All right, we'll
I don't have long left for my hair though before the stress of adult life takes it away. But
I thought you were just going to get it buzzed off.
No, just
like for the summer.
either the hair's going to go soon or cancer tube is going to kill me. One of those things.
Well, that's
heart attack as well.
That's good. So okay, so I know.
So looking like a mature member from a Harry Potter movie doesn't help you at all.
You're just saying that because of the accent. Calm down, Jay.
No,
keep your butterbeer boner to yourself.
No, I'm talking about the glasses. You fucking.
But you regret
so
the revolution now, though, aren't you?
Yeah. Because I've been meaning to talk to you about this a little bit because you've had some exchanges with Doug recently. The question that I wanted to ask you, and since I'm going over this one a little bit, he's just kind of dove into this whole, if you're right, you're masculine, and if you're weak, you're feminine.
So I've not seen him much on this, if that's what he was, because I've not seen this video that you were reviewing.
Okay.
I think some of that was kind of in his views before, though, because he's always talked about like conservatives are like the real farm man and liberals are like granola crunching vegetarian woke people or whatever. So I'm guessing it's just a continuation of that, or is there a bit more to it? Maybe I don't.
It just seems like he simplified it. When I watched this before, I kind of skipped through this guy's portion, Josh Klein, and I got more into the Randall Rouser thing because I thought, shamefully, that if anybody was going to trigger him, it was going to be Randall again. And when I got into that part, there's points that Randall's bringing up about issues that he's got with what Trump's saying and doing.
Mm-hmm. Right,
and Doug will talk. Yeah, and he'll compare it to us. Is like, oh, well, that's a perfectly acceptable position for someone like my wife, and it's like, do you disrespect your wife as much as you disrespect Randall? Because I'm kind of wondering if that level of contempt is healthy for a marriage. But
yeah, but not from Michelle Obama, of course, because she's not a real woman. Yeah,
that's because her arms are bigger than Doug's thighs.
Well, that's the Obama era conspiracy theory that he likes as well. The Michelle Obama is actually a trans woman that was like Barack Obama's boyfriend and transitioned to be his wife or something. I mean, I don't know if he actually believes that, but that's the meme anyway.
But it's his favorite bit of American political fan fiction. Yeah,
exactly. There's this interesting like video documentary. Like, I don't know if you've seen it, but I would definitely recommend it to you and your audience, by the channel called We're in Hell. And it's something like Men Are Not Okay in America or something like that. And it's it's like an exploration of the history of masculinity in the US and how basically the overall thesis, and there's a lot that goes into this, is that as white collar office jobs become more and more prevalent, masculinity becomes more based on appearance and performance than it does on any like actual practical skill that men have. So in the good old days, whatever, you didn't need to have massive pecs or whatever, because your function in society would be that you're like on the farm or fixing trucks or doing something that's traditionally manly and competent or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then as people kind of move more and more into offices, American culture sort of reacts to this, where men have to signal their masculinity through having muscles, and like bodybuilding culture kicks off, and people get into like steroids and health and fitness, and truck styles change because it's not about having a truck because you need a truck for the space. It's about having a truck because it signals like that you're masculine. So the aesthetic choices in the cars and consumer choices that drive the choices that the designers are making, kind of like match up to that desire rather than the desire for functionality and stuff. So I reckon that this conception of masculinity that Doug's working with is more like this performative kind of nonsense version of masculinity. Whereas I think if you get it, if you read actual history and you read about real competent men from the good old days or whatever, then you find that yes, there's this element to it that is like about competence or action or whatever, but there's also this element to it that's kind of like about being deeply in touch with your emotion and sentimental towards human life and having like these principles and values. And for some people those expressions are religious, for some people it's not, but
kind of like the Walt Whitman kind of thing. But
it's not just this kind of like totalitarian power crush all dissent with my big biceps attitude. It's like it's like a deep respect for difference or protecting the weak and stuff like that. Not
right.
So I just think it's an untraditional and like very broken view of masculinity that like Doug is working with here.
Yeah, I think and I'm trying to figure out where he gets it from. I mean, I understand what it is because, like, as an American, I've lived in a few other places, but this is, I came up here, and one of the I don't know if you know what this vehicle is, but it's called the Ford Maverick.
Oh, I don't know that one. The only one I really know is like the Raptor.
That's a much more aggressive. So the Ford Maverick is now like in the North American car market. Ford doesn't have a small car.
But which Ford Raptor? The F-150 Raptor or the Ford Ranger Raptor?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you, but it's like a big ass, like it's like a bus on the front.
Yeah, there's an F-150 Raptor in there. Now there's a Ford Ranger Raptor. Just want to throw that out.
Yeah. Well, the Maverick is the smallest, and this is like the entry level vehicle available in the North American market for Ford. Right now, I don't know if they've got like a Mondeo or something in Mexico or in parts of Central America, but in the U.S. and as far as I know, even in Canada, the Ford Maverick is the smallest one they've got, and it's this little it's kind of a 4-door compact truck. By all accounts, it's a pretty good vehicle. But if you get that thing, if you buy that particular truck, hoping that you're going to meet like these kinds of masculine types halfway, you're just going to look like a crippled pervert, So even then you're boned.
Real masculinity. That's not like this traditional conception of masculinity is you can just like finance a car and you've got it or something like.
But the thing, what I find interesting is like if you talk about the kind of guys that came back from like World War II or Korea or Vietnam, at least in the United States, you had that one guy that was built like a bag of misshapen potatoes, but he was like brutally strong and could milk cows all day or whatever. No one would give that killer shit for driving a tiny truck, right? They're like, yeah, leave Mitch alone. Mitch will choke a bitch. Like,
I was watching this Adam Curtis documentary the other day called I forget what exactly the title's called, but it's something like The Living Dead or something. And the idea is it's about kind of myths that still animate our politics today. And one of them that he looks at is, the West as the good guys in World War II. Like World War II is just being this like very simplistic moral crusade of the West against like, the bad guys. And one of the ways he looks at this is through the individual experiences of soldiers. And the point that he gets at is that for individual soldiers, their experience of the war wasn't often this kind of moral crusade, but just this like mess that made no sense, and like, you know, experiencing all of this brutality and insanity. And then
It was a job. It was a job from hell.
right.
Yeah.
And there was this one guy who was in the war that he interviews as part of it, or there's a few of them, but you know what, the theme that I noticed is that even though these guys are describing, you know, like killing people, combat, like the combat of World War II that they're involved in, coming across their experiences of coming across dead bodies, like literally beating the Germans, you know, they're doing so as very tender, reflective old men, very articulate. They're not kind of putting on, you know, they're not talking like Andrew Tate to sound tough or whatever. They're using their vocabulary to articulate their reflections and experiences and their educational backgrounds to try and understand this thing. Because that, you know, because their concern is this sense of truth or something, of like trying to really get at what the problem is and solve it, so there's some psychological wisdom or something. Whereas this other form of masculinity is nothing like that, right? You'd get, oh, that's kind of gay and poetic. That's kind of, you know, because it's so insecure with itself. It's got to be constantly just flexing and posturing and stuff. Yeah, it's just a really broken version of masculinity.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out exactly where I've seen Doug going in this direction for a while. I've watched it happen. I've watched it with the, you know, degradation of his criticism in terms of Christianity, where he would just sort of, like I was saying at the beginning, he sort of ceded that the correct interpretation of Christianity is the fundamentalist biblical inerrantist view, which is like, there's some Christian scholars, believers and not, that would really disagree with you on that. And then to turn around and kind of devote himself to this kind of culture war crap.
Yeah, I reckon that move is the first move on the theology as well. I think it's just because that's what's convenient for him. Well, it's a few things. I think it's because, on the one hand, he can see that these people are kind of following the same sort of logic he uses to process the world. So he's like, so that's a respectable form, not like these, you know, weak-wristed, whatever, Christians who disagree. But the other thing is that it's convenient for him, because then it's very easy. He can feel very safe in rejecting their theism and saying, look how stupid it is. But then these people are kind of like the perfect foil. So he can like say, but look, we can hang out because of our conservative values, whatever. But there's no danger that I will take any of their ideas seriously, because they're obviously crazy as well. Like, and so it gives him this like sense of safety, and it works for his audience and like how he's trying to present himself and stuff. But yeah, it's clearly just an insane view theologically. Like, why not go with just far more reasonable views and everything? Like, there are religious people who are perfectly reasonable and just have these different practices that they engage in.
And I mean, I think you probably nailed it. But you know, watching him kind of gravitate towards those kind of like cheap, I would call them kind of cheap, you know, because I mean, for me, when I kind of deconstructed, that was the way that I kind of, you know, dealt with it, at least at some point. You know, the real Christianity was the crazy Christianity. It was the Christianity of, you know, of like kind of snake handlers and the biblicists, the biblical inerrantists, the fundamentalists. And it wasn't until later on, reading more into it, that I realized like that was wrong-headed. That, you know, that was me rejecting dogma from those particular groups, but not really thinking about the idea that there's other expressions of Christianity that are out there that probably haven't taken into consideration. And just because they're not popular in the United States or even consistent, because oftentimes with progressive Christianity, they'll be progressive on a couple of things and then wildly regressive in other areas. When you find a few that are, you know, kind of like-minded, then you know that they're doing okay. But that notion that he would bring up, like, yeah, but they're fake Christians because they have to go against the Bible's teachings in order to get there. And it's like, Doug, you got that from the dogma of the people delivering that, as opposed to like actually thinking like, you know, some of these people that you're talking about actually could have developed a dogma that was a lot more inclusive. So
it's like, because they have a clear answer to the question, are these liberals going to burn in hell forever? they're the real Christians. But,
You know,
the people who think about that for a second.
real quick, it amazes me how much this conversation has evolved, and we haven't even gotten through 11 minutes of that video.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, it's not just you. No, it's not even. No, Nathan, it's not even your fault. I went on a tirade for like 3 minutes, but Jefferson has been on, like, he's gone on multiple ones, and that's just in the first 11 minutes of this. I mean, this just reminds me of like watching the video where you are trying to explain like the nuances of marginalism to Doug, and he just, it was like you might as well have just been throwing stones over his head.
Oh yeah.
That was just, I mean, not to go off topic, but it was really kind of amazing to watch that conversation kind of devolve into this kind of like infantile, like watching you trying to take a concept that applies to multiple different, not just racial, but ethnic and other different kinds of individuals, and him trying to just basically reduce it to only the racial component.
And then claim that was his opponent's fault.
Yeah. And that was just, to me, and that's why when I saw you, I was like, well, how'd you feel about having that conversation with Stupid for so long? Like, what'd you feel about depositing that much investment in getting absolutely jack shit out of it?
I don't think in that one, I don't know if Nathan doesn't come across as being that invested in getting anything productive about it.
No, it was just the fact that Nathan actually took the time. I'm not saying that Nathan was necessarily like, no, he lost. I'm just saying that he actually did it, and it's like, holy shit.
There is a part of me that still like cares about Doug and kind of hopes he'll have some moment of like going, do you know what? This has all gone too far, hasn't it? Like, you know, maybe it will be when they're marching people off to the camps or something. I don't know, but I have some hope that something will happen. I don't have a hope that something bad will happen, but there's something Doug will see, and he'll like reflect on it and go, oh yeah, this is like the exact opposite of everything I used to stand, like the good values. Obviously Doug was never perfect. He was still like overly polemical and stuff like that in various ways, but there were some like good values at the core of what he was trying to do that were kind of like driving his engagement around religion. It was like, you know, this concern against fundamentalism, this, I guess, sense of shock and horror at the way that people can deceive themselves into believing certain things if they're not very careful about their reasoning. And I just keep hoping that,
listening to him tell somebody like Mike Winger that, you know, transgenderism is not what he thinks it is, which he did, you know, trying to let him know, like, no, that's not exactly how it works. When he had somebody like Violet on as a stunt, granted, which is sort of like, that was an interesting combination. You highlighted it. It was Doug at his worst and his best, because he gets Violet on there, pits him against Mike Winger. But then some of the stuff that he's saying, like to Mike Winger, I'm like, the stuff that he's repeating back to him, I'm like, Doug, I have watched you get told this by the trans activists that you wanted to speak with. And you act like you've never heard it before, and you were telling it to Mike Winger.
Yeah, he did actually. There's a clip in that somewhere where he says exactly that thing. Like, I think Mike tries to come out with some like biological definition, and I think Doug's like, well, you know, gender's a complicated concept. Like, you know,
he does.
Fashion choices, how I feel about myself. People are complicated, Mike. Why can't you handle this with your rigid fundamentalism? I mean, so I always I do have this hope, but I also think part of why I still engage with him sometimes, and I think I've got to have these healthy boundaries of sort of accepting that he's lost at the same time, is just because there's always a new trickle of audience into him as well. And I think for people who haven't been exposed to his stuff before, it will all seem very novel and like, wow, this guy's got so many answers. Because, you know, if all you're talking to is like very uninformed and ill-equipped people who disagree, it is very easy to like make it look like the other side is really stupid. But then as soon as someone comes in that knows his stick, his psychology, what he's doing, I think it probably just looks so unappealing and bad that those people on the fence can be like, yeah, that I'm not listening to anymore.
And I do find this interesting coming from you, Nathan, considering, I mean, not that any protectivism has to come into play or anything like that, but that Doug was key to your deconstructivism.
Yeah.
Your
Well,
deconstruction, which is kind of interesting because now it seems like the student has now become the master in a sense.
Well, I think I want to keep myself honest here as well. And like what this cautionary tale sort of shows for me is that, you know, being right on one thing, being aware of biases and stuff, it's no protection really. Like
exactly. Yeah.
You've kind of got to constantly be very careful about cultivating your kind of epistemic hygiene and what you believe and how you inquire and stuff. Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yep. I agree. Good. Yeah.
All right.
Very good point.
Well, Nate, thanks for coming on, man. Is there anything else you want to like throw in with us? Do you want to stick around while I watch this, or?
I mean, I don't mind either way. I'm going to have to drop off at some point in the next like 20, 30 minutes for bedtime. But yeah, like I'm happy to stick around and provide commentary if you want. The one piece of commentary, though, I will provide is Braxton Hunter is copying JD Vance's eyeliner. I'm liking it.
Is that eyeliner? I wondered about that myself. Like,
wait, Braxton Hunter? I didn't know. I thought it was just he was just ill.
Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. I was just thought it was funny that
I thought he had a bala, or like what do they call that? A summer bala? I don't know.
I mean, I get the sense with Braxton, right? He's not gonna. I don't think he's someone who really has or had in the past particularly strong or well thought through political views. But because of the sort of religious circles he's in, and the fact that they're all like just pro MAGA, he's kind of got to buy into it. He's like, yeah, this is about truth and God, this whole political movement, and so it's kind of like funny the idea that he would also just like randomly wear eyeliner as well. But I don't think he is. I'm just joking.
Given the stories that he brought up, I'm pretty sure that his political ideology reduced to Hulk smash. So yeah.
Hey, it's my favorite kind of political ideology.
But like the first thing that needed to go squish was his dad, you know, because Braxton is not right in the head. So
yeah, but he knows his whole position. This is kind of messed up now. I'm going to go psychotherapy of Braxton because the reason he is in the position he's in with the status he has, which is a kind of hell because of all the cognitive dissonance he has. And, you know, like, he doesn't have any other skills. What would he do? Like, how would his life be? It's because of his dad, right? And that seminary that his dad brought him up into and gave him that position. So that makes a lot of sense. That he would be both mad at his dad in a way, but also have, like, a kind of respect for him. And, yeah, it's an interesting guy.
Yeah, because his dad had that kind of power and control over him. But then at some point, in his late adolescence, he lashed out at him. Yeah. Oh, that is deeply sad. Well, all right. Let's see. Is this all conservative position? Let's get into the progressive position. Let's just push forward and see. Because, I mean, I have a feeling Pine Creek is going to react a lot more to Randall Rouser's points than Josh Klein. Right now, he's just like, yep, Josh is speaking truth. And so far, Josh is just speaking tired right-wing platitudes.
All right. Thank you very much, Brax. Thanks, Josh. I really appreciate that.
Ooh. Also,
to
remind you all, yeah, they're on that kind of basis. Randall Rouser once triggered Pine Creek to the point where Pine Creek wished him harm. That's right, he did that. I just have to remind everybody: this guy, this soy Canadian, once made this alpha male American so angry that he lost control of his emotions.
You know damn well Pine Creek beats puppies. You know damn well Pine Creek.
He doesn't have time for that.
No.
You're assuming other life forms are allowed to exist in his house.
Oh my God. Well, I'm just saying. I think that Pine Creek, if he lost a good hand at poker, he's going to pump a puppy through a wall.
Not necessarily. No, he'll swallow that. No, yeah, he's a narcissist. Plenty of narcissists are great at poker. And they can handle a lot.
So he'll do it in
That's
prep.
Not true.
Okay. He'll do it in prep. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. He just strangles the bird or something. Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. Food for thought.
So I'm going to approach it like this. I'm going to say, what kind of values should one expect in a leader from a Christian lens? And among the things you should look for is that they seek justice, that they protect the innocent and vulnerable, that they fight corruption, that they oppose evil.
I think he's
Wait. So this discussion is about whether or not Trump is an appropriate Christian leader.
No, it's conservatives. The name of this particular debate was, how should Christians discuss Trump after the first two? This has been first 2 months.
Okay, well, it just seemed like the way that Randall was starting, he was talking about in the guise of like Trump being a leader in a Christian sense, as though something as an example for Christians to hold to.
No, I think his point is going to be like, there are, here's what you should expect, and like Trump just falls so short of that you shouldn't.
Sure. Yeah. I just thought it was interesting that he was starting that in like, okay, so we're going to talk about like what should we expect from a Christian leader and whether or not Trump holds to that. So okay, never mind. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, where this is going to actually pivot though is going to be Josh making excuses for the fact that the Christian leader doesn't have to be perfect, infallible, or even like 90% the right way. They just have to be a vessel for God's plan or something, like, which is incredibly weak. But I believe Josh Klein goes that way.
I also think that's probably going to be consistent with literally anything then, right?
Yeah, but I've actually heard Veckel in a discussion with Danny talk about how an evil person can be used for God's plan for a right tract.
Well, that's what I mean, right? Because then you've just thrown away. Basically, what the conclusion of his argument should be then is that there's no relationship between a Christian and endorsing any particular political view, because God can act through any way he wants.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
And that's actually the point. That's the point of the Cyrus, which is what they were calling him in his first term. So
Proverbs.
So I'm going to give select examples where I think the Trump administration, Donald Trump in particular, has been disappointing in that regard.
YouTube punk, is Randall R anti-Trump? He is. Yes, he is anti-Trump.
So first, with respect to seeking justice, the Trump administration began on January 20th with Donald Trump issuing pardons for all of those who participated, more than 1,200 people, in the January 6th riots. Now,
sorry to hear that, John. I hope she's going to get better. Go take care of her. Thank you very much for showing up, and thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, get her some chicken broth. Chug. No, I don't know how she's sick, but sorry.
Just the week before.
Whoa, he said riots and not insurrection.
Or a few days before,
it was both.
J.D. Vance had said, quote, "If you committed violence on January 6th, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned." And yet Trump not only compared the people who were in prison for various crimes and being tried for them or allegations of crimes, he compared them to the hostages in Gaza, the Jewish hostages in Gaza.
That's not true. He called them hostages, that's true, but he didn't directly compare them to the hostages in Gaza.
He said they were political prisoners. That's the same thing.
I searched, I scoured for that. I couldn't find it.
He didn't literally say they're the equivalent of the hostages in Gaza. The hostages in Gaza were political prisoners taken by Hamas. He was saying that the January 6th, rioters, insurrectionists were also political prisoners. That is categorically a conflation. Jesus, Doug, fuck.
But the evidence we're supposed to take here, right, is that Doug scoured the internet for it. Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, I've seen Doug scouring, for example, when he asks Grok a question, and he's like, I'm going to produce some statistics here that and then Grok, one of them was how many Ukrainians support Russia or something like that.
I thought it was going to be how many Ukrainians does it take to screw in a light bulb? Yeah.
No, it was honestly just he was having an argument with someone where he was like, how many Ukrainians actually think Russia should win? And then, he's like,
what?
Yeah.
So he types
he did that.
And it's like, there's not much good evidence on this, but a poll conducted in, 2022 indicated that between 0 and 1% of Ukrainians supported it. And then Doug's face, because he was so confident beforehand that, he was right. And then it just dropped. The point is, in terms of his ability to sort of search for things, engage with information, process that information, not just like filter out what he doesn't like. I do not believe it.
Wait, Nathan, are you saying that maybe he should actually, before he says something out loud, maybe think it in his head, Google it real quick before he says it out loud?
He can't hear his own inner monologue.
Absolutely. Like, and even, just if you're going to say something like that, for that claim, for all of these claims of Trump, like saying certain things, there are like sources of what they are. Like that, what's typically in dispute is whether that is like the best interpretation of what he's saying. Like, oh, we're going to go down there and fight like hell. Is that an incitement to find people on both sides? Well, is that him saying this, or should we interpret it that way? But, you can always find the sources on these things, right? People aren't just making up that he said stuff.
Yeah.
I seem to remember Doug used to say Arizona could beat all of Russia. No, if you took Arizonians over to Russia in the dead of winter, they would die.
There's a bit in, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the show,
They
but
would
in the show
fucking die.
There's the show Shameless has a lot of international iterations. It started in the UK. The American version, there's a part where one of the characters he's married to a Russian woman, and at one point the Russian woman actually has a Russian husband, and at some point he shows up, and he's something of like an international criminal, and so he's in the south side of Chicago and he's running around. And at the time in one of the episodes, it's a massive heat wave. Like everybody's just like passed out, like fanning themselves, feet in ice buckets, just trying to stay cool. And at one point, one of the characters is like, well, he can't have gotten far. It's that heat wave. Everybody else is like passed out. Like, well, where's he going to go? Where could he be? And this man is the Russian wife. She goes, oh, he is Russian. He is immune to weather.
Well, yeah, what I'm saying is, saying is that you can't take Arizonians to Russia. You just wait for the weather to drop, and they freeze into little popsicles. They're dead.
That's not true. If it comes down in a fight between Russia and Arizona will win. Yeah.
No, Arizona will lose.
They got that Yankee Doodle Dandy energy, man. They'll do
that
it.
Yankee Doodle Dandy energy ain't gonna fucking help them in a fucking Siberian winter.
Yeah, but think about the people who came to America are the most industrious and hardworking of the Europeans. So they've got the genes for that. So they'll have those genes when they're fighting in Russia.
Exactly. Yeah, which will be ironic. They're like, "Get your filthy genes out of here!" Like, you're from us. They're like, "Yeah, we don't care. we'll kill you dead."
I think that's a way something to say to really get people to hate Trump. But if you actually scour the internet,
hate him.
Nowhere has Trump at least that I could find said the January 6 hostages are like the hostages in Gaza or any.
He said they were political prisoners, and he did say like, oh my, never. I'm not going to make that same word again
like that. But yeah, I agree. He did refer to them as hostages.
He called them political prisoners.
But then he also pardoned them, and that included 172 people who had pled guilty to assaulting law enforcement and 69 who pled guilty to assaulting law enforcement with a dangerous or deadly weapon. And he also commuted the sentences of Proud Boys and Oath Keepers.
I hate to inform Doug of this, that anybody who accepted pardons on behalf of based on what Donald Trump was doing,
admitted they did that.
They were admitting guilt. They have to admit guilt by being pardoned.
Yeah,
fucking idiot.
Who had been convicted of seditious conspiracy against the government. Second example that raises significant concern for me is the pardoning of Ross Ulbricht. So Ross Ulbricht had run the Silk Road, which was the first dark web marketplace where banned drugs were sold by way of Bitcoin cryptocurrency. Ulbricht facilitated the sale of more than $200 million worth of illegal drugs and other illicit goods, making his impact on the global drug trade equivalent to that of Pablo Escobar. And he was convicted, sentenced to life in prison in 2015, but on January 22nd, Trump pardoned him, and Trump has referred to himself as the crypto president. I'd like to also say a quick word about Andrew Tate, a pornographer, accused sexual abuser.
hold on to your hats here, folks. This one gets good.
Human trafficker and big Trump supporter, Andrew Tate was released from Romanian prison and flown to the United States on February 20.
Okay, I want to rewind this a little bit and talk about the pardons. I agree that I disagree with Trump with some of the pardons he did. Not all of them. I would have preferred commuting and some not being pardoned or commuted at all. The
Also on that,
most violent offenders.
Does he know
so
the
I agree
difference?
with Randall there.
Hang on. What was that, Nate?
Well, if you just pause on that, because there's this thing Doug does as well, where he sort of signals how reasonable he is by like conceding a point, but he's not like conceding it in a fair way, right? He's not like, yeah, actually, Randall does have a point because here are some things where I agree with him, and actually, it is really bad that like there was this case that made me upset that I didn't like. Instead, he's like, sure, there are some cases, blah blah blah, yeah, yep. In one ear out the other, but you know, it's like all it's just a pure rationalization dialogue. It's not like actually evaluate and weigh the reasons.
I get where Randall's coming from. Sure, Trump shouldn't have let the violent cop beaters go, but you know what? Randall washes his wife's bras, you know, like fuck him.
I'm telling you, Doug wants that Tate in his mouth.
Yeah, well, here we go. This gets funny.
But that being said, now we're talking about the choice between Trump and the Biden-Harris administration prior to November 7th of last year. What
you mean reality versus
what really bothers
that
me?
we're in now?
No, just hang on. Just watch this.
Mm-hmm.
One could actually make the argument it is worse for Biden to have pardoned his family than what Trump did with the January 6ers. Now, why do I say that? The progressives is going, this is nuts. This is ludicrous. But think about it. It could be true. It could be true.
Leo, yes, that is Randall Rouser. Yep.
This is also, I'm just going to point out one of Doug's kind of favorite argumentative strategies, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
the mere possibility of something being the case and then just honing in and focusing on that. You know, and that because this is his favorite thing as well, because it's so easy to defend. Because what he has to defend if someone comes in and challenges it is just the mere possibility of it, right? So you know, he's saying like, you know, now, you know, you could say that in fact it was worse when Biden gave out I can't think of like a really obviously good policy that he did or something, but let's say, you know, when Biden gave out free healthcare to everyone and it saved 1 million lives, you could say that that was worse than when Trump ordered the killings of 150 million people in the streets, because it's possible at least that those people would have gone on to suffer more, and the people who got, you know, it starts sounding like some William Lane Craig Molinism nonsense or whatever, where of course it's possible, like you can kind of conjure up a story and a way of telling it where that would technically be true. But if we're in the business of seriously thinking about these things, we want to think about what's actually true, not just what's possible in like some fictional world.
I want to tell Leo Phillips says Randall is actually a really chill guy. One, yes, he is. Two, this is a great way to remind the audience, if they're still listening or if new people have come in, this really chill guy, Randall Rouser, in the bigger picture there, triggered Doug so hard in the past that Doug wished him physical harm. Jesus Christ. I am a scumbag. All right, I'll just hide that and play this.
But, you know, very low percentage. What if Hunter Biden murdered a hooker 3 years ago? What if
he did?
Well, how many hookers have the Jan 6s collectively murdered? You know?
Exactly. What if amongst the like 32 of them, you know, like
even since they've been released, like, you know, haven't a bunch of them been done for like pedophilia and stuff since? Like,
the more disturbing thing is when they're like, hey, between all of you, like, how many of you actually, like, how many prostitutes have you killed? They're like, we figured it out. It's 1.8. Like, what? 1.8? Like, how?
I'm making a point here. The pardons that Biden did,
of his family
would mean Hunter Biden would get away with murder. Because those pardons were not specific.
Not at a state level, it wouldn't, because if a president pardons any of these crimes for a particular time range, it would essentially cover any crimes committed, and that would include murder by his son Hunter Biden. But that would not protect him, because once it came out that there was a crime against him at a state level, the state could accuse him of committing that crime, and according to his pardon, yeah, he admitted to that shit. It gets a little bit tricky legally when that happens.
Specific to any
The
crime.
other thing though is when
It's
Doug's
like
saying
a
worse,
blanket.
right? When Doug's saying it would be worse, what does he mean? Because if he means in terms of consequences, supposing that, and again, this is all based on the mere possibility that Hunter Biden murdered someone, right? But suppose that he did. What are the continued harms of him not going to prison? Whereas having all of these terrorists released from prison, I mean, well, we're finding out about the harms on a daily basis, right? Where, they're going back and beating their wives and abusing their kids and doing all sorts of nonsense.
One of them was shot and killed during a traffic stop because he lost his mind. He attacked cops.
Oh, yeah,
I can't remember what. Yeah, he just lost his shit, and then they ended up putting him down. I was like, and normally I'm just like, okay, that's bad.
No,
for
I've seen that one because he says it to the guy who pulls him over, doesn't he? He goes, "Just so you know, I'm I'm one of the freedom fighters from Jan 6 or something." Like, just so you know, like as soon as the officer comes over to his window, he like opens it, and the police officer's like, "Right, okay, can you take your hands off?" Like he's like, "I'm just saying," because he wants the police officer to like go, "Wow, you hero," go like in his head. It's like, go home at 100 miles per hour. Sure.
Trump lets me do whatever I want. Speed off, hero.
Get pardoned. I think it's unprecedented.
I don't know if it's
so that's terrible. Now Harris is not Biden, and so we can't. Harris has never had the opportunity to pardon anybody. But the Harris-Biden administration, Harris. I would love to ask Harris, do you support that blanket pardon?
She might not.
For all those people going back, even Liz Cheney?
A drug trade equivalent to that of Pablo.
Is that
what's that?
Surely, it seems to me that the reasonable stance to have is like in evaluating credible evidence, right? So that there is credible evidence that Trump will use lawfare to unjustly persecute these people, but I don't have any credible evidence that Hunter Biden's a murderer. So what I should act on in terms of reducing harm is that credible threat towards Hunter Biden of being unjustly persecuted by Trump. And so then the pardon's the good thing to do. I shouldn't operate on the mere. I mean, imagine if Doug's on a jury duty or something, and you've got the evidence presented for both sides, and he's like, but isn't it possible that this is all part of God's plan for this person to go on to save 1 million people, even though we've been presented with all the evidence? Isn't that at least possible?
I think you've actually presented the best example of what the worst case scenario would be, is having Doug on a jury with you and having to deliberate with him and be like, what kind of insane rhetoric are you bringing to this, you crazy fuck? Well, if we think about it, no, we don't have to think about it that way. You're going way out of whack.
Escobar, and he was convicted, sentenced to life in prison in 2015, but on January 22nd, Trump pardoned him, and Trump has referred to himself as the crypto president.
Yeah, so he's talking about a guy named Albrecht. Albrecht? How do you pronounce his name? And I agree that Trump was very hypocritical here, because Trump is on record of saying that drug dealers should get the death penalty, but here he pardoned a guy who was basically selling some really bad drugs on the dark web using cryptocurrency. He got convicted, sentenced. Was he sentenced to life? And he served 11 years. And initially Trump said he was going to commute his sentence, not pardon him, but then he ended up pardoning. The difference, for those of you from North Dakota, commuting means that it's you let them out of jail, but they still have that on their record. Pardon means that it's even gone off their record.
No, not exactly. They've actually admitted that they're guilty at a federal level. It's not on their record. It doesn't follow them around at state level, but yeah, that's kind of a trick. The states still reserve the right to actually prosecute against those crimes even after the federal pardon has been issued. So it's a bit tricky. A little bit tricky.
The thing here that Doug used to always do with like theists or people with kind of like crazy beliefs when they would talk about disconfirming evidence in this way, when they couldn't quite so easily like dismiss it, is that he would ask them what that does then on their scale to get them to focus on the belief revision aspect. So maybe he's going to go on and do this, but like what I'd want to see after this is for him to go, so because I think that's bad, that makes me go 5% more towards Trump is bad. Like I was at 65%, now 65% good.
Oh
and
yeah.
now I'm at 60% good because this evidence has done something for me. And I think that's just what he doesn't do, right? So he'll be like, well, I must be being reasonable because I concede this, but I'm not actually going to take that into account in my evaluation.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't see him doing that kind of stuff. And you're right. I remember when he used to do that. He used to use that technique. So
it's like it never happened. It's a huge deal. This is why presidents are above the law, because they have this pardoning power. So yeah, Trump was a big hypocrite there. But now one could say, is there any examples of Harris being a hypocrite? Of course there is. One example that comes to mind is Harris threw 1,000 or 2,000 people in jail for marijuana use and marijuana related crimes, and then laughs about using marijuana herself. That's kind of like being a hypocrite, right? Another example of Harris being a hypocrite is saying that Trump's border wall was a
no, actually none of those are. The one that he actually brought up before, what was the one he brought up about Trump and the
vanity project in a hypocrite, right? Marijuana use and marijuana related crimes, and then laughs about using marijuana herself. That's kind of like being a hypocrite, right?
Yeah, I mean, partially, but the issue with that is that if you are an attorney general and you are sworn into that position in whatever state that you are kind of assuming a position where you're going to prosecute, whatever cases. Well, you do have some leeway, obviously, as the attorney general. But you're going based on the statute and the political realities of the state that you're in, not your personal feelings. So the fact that Doug is talking about this, like, oh, well, she's just sort of giggled about the fact that she once did that, but then she was at one point kind of like an anti-weed crusader. Like, yeah, she was an anti-weed crusader in California at a time when they decided that that's what they were going to do. Which was more than likely kind of an attempt to try to clean up their image of being like way too lenient on weed or whatever. And God knows where they got the emphasis to like do that. It's not like the federal government could have weighed in on that and told them that they needed to like straighten their shit out. This kind of stuff happens all the time. Somebody like, kind of a team player like Kamala Harris is not going to come out and be like, look, the reason that we did that was because the DEA weighed in on us and told us that we needed to like straighten our act out. She's not going to do that. She's not that cool. It'd be great if she were, but she's not. So,
another example of Harris being a hypocrite is saying that Trump's border wall was a vanity project and a waste of money.
It is a vanity project and a waste of money.
And then years later, she ends up, the Biden-Harris administration ends up funding at least partial border wall construction.
They didn't fund it. It was already funded. This was covered by like ProPublica, NPR, a variety of different sources. The issue was whether or not the funding was going to allow the partial construction going forward to continue. And they did. They didn't have the legal ability to rewind it or take it back. And so they allowed it to continue. And right-wing media turned it into this whole thing like, aha, we caught the hypocrites. Here they are using the funding that was allotted to continue to build Trump's wall, even though they said they never would. And they're like, well, it's already being built and they've already got the stuff for it. So fuck. Democrats are terrible about being put in positions like that and then being able to defend it. Like the best thing to do would be, and I'm like, hey, here's your tax money at work. Trump did this. Now we can't stop this because of money that he allotted like 16 months ago, but they're going to continue to build it. So it's an eyesore. Nobody likes it. Pretty sure it fucked up the owl population or the coyote population around here and some kind of mushroom population in the soil or something. But you know what? Fuck nature. It's going to work.
Every politician is going to lie, be mistaken, and be a hypocrite.
Lie, be mistaken, and be a hypocrite. In what order, Doug?
I reckon he's also like partly right there. You know, like of course, no human and no politician is going to be like white as snow. But that the question is like, what do you consider to be too far? Because there's a scale, right? Like, okay, maybe someone is like said some sexist things when they were 15 on Twitter. Like, is that the line? Well, no, maybe
Right.
not. But you know, maybe there's like a recording of them in their 30s where they say you can just like grab people by the pussy and rape them. Maybe that's where the line is, right? Or something instead. You got to like
when they're talking about that in their 60s, you're kind of like, well, that's a little fucked up, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not, the problem isn't just with like hypocrisy per se, like that is, he's right, that's to be expected, but it's like, where is that line? And I think some of these things are just like, you know, so maybe enforcing the law with respect to like weed, but then joking about doing it, that's more like a sort of like white little hypocrisy. And that, you know, there could be problems with that, sure, but then that's like very different to
Also, the problem with that, you know, these people will go back in time and watch, like, if any of these left-wing or left-wing or centrist Democrats had some kind of inconsistency in their political walk from, you know, the time that they were in college till now, they'll check that off as like a nick in their armor and be like, yeah, here's where you're inconsistent. But with Republicans, a lot of Republican conservatives, the contradictions are the point. Contradictions actually make you stronger. It didn't matter that, you know,
it's like,
it didn't matter. You could have been this libertarian socialist that was for, like, you know, hey, you know what, I think we ought to subsidize sex workers, you know, because you were a libertarian, but you also wanted to like roll back taxes and regulations on certain industries and stuff like that. And then as you get forward, then you take this like really socially conservative, you know, view and like, no, we've got to stop sex work. We must stop porn and all this kind of stuff. And people are like, hey, you were that then and now this now. What the fuck happened? And then you're just like, oh, well, you know what? You're a prude if you can't figure out, like, you can't follow the plot, then I don't know what's wrong with you. And it's like, wait a minute. So if a Democrat doesn't have a character arc that you can track like a Disney character from birth to death, you're going to accuse them of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
But some fucking Yahoo Yosemite Sam libertarian can all of a sudden turn into some kind of like right-wing Christian pearl-clutching weirdo, like overnight. And you're just like, well, sounds like the Holy Spirit to me. Like, fuck off. You know, like, and for them, that's just like, that's just like, well, that's how strong our fucking brand is. Like, all right, okay. Like, yeah, that's when you need to put them in check.
I'd like to also say a quick word about Andrew Tate, a pornographer, accused sexual abuser, human trafficker, and big Trump supporter. Andrew Tate was released from Romanian prison and flown to the United States on February 28th, after the Financial Times reported that Donald Trump's special envoy Richard Grenell had pressured Romania to remove travel restrictions against Andrew Tate. So those are some of my significant concerns with respect to seeking justice.
Yeah, I just want to note Andrew Tate is an American citizen who has never been convicted of a felony. You can say Trump's
Is he an
been
American citizen? And also, we want to extradite him to the UK for crimes here as well. I mean, this is obviously there's the crimes in Romania, but there's the crimes here. The reason he's not been convicted is because he's been running from the law across different countries.
Doug gets real slippery about this. So he is a dual citizen. He's a U.S. and I believe he was Canadian originally, but I can't remember like how his parents work out. But
I think that's it. His dad's like Jamaican or something weird, like
something like that. So he has dual citizenship in the U.S. and the U.K. I don't know. Like I knew federal authorities were looking into him and his brother when they came over because what's his face? The governor there like authorized the AG in Florida to go after him. They got sent. Well, it was funny because when this video was out, it was on the 21st. Today's the 25th. This was on the 21st of March, I think. And I was commenting in there. I'm like, they just sent him back, you stupid fuckers. Like they just sent them back on the 21st, back to Romania to face charges, Andrew and his brother. And they're, he's talking like, well, they're not actual felons. Like, no, they're not actual felons, but they have been accused and arrested for felonies. And I started to actually include this like comment. I'm like, so you got two people at the border, Doug. One of them has been accused of international felonies and the other one has not, which, all things being equal, which one do you allow into your country? Naturally, he didn't respond. He did eventually kick me because I texted too much. I was feeling quite saucy, but anyway.
I can say in the UK, right, that for the cases that there are over here, they wouldn't be pushing the case like they did if there wasn't some pretty compelling evidence. Now, that is not the same as a conviction in court, but the Crown Prosecution Service won't take a case like that and try and like extradite someone and all that if they don't have some like smoking gun type evidence.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing that I thought about. So when he kept saying this, he's like, well, he's not a felon. I'm like, no, he's not a felon, not technically in terms of conviction. That's true. But he was being flown from the United States back to Romania to continue legal proceedings. And I didn't realize how desperately thirsty the UK justice system was for him, but it's funny to hear it. So let's see what more he has to say about this.
Convicted is a felon, but you can't say that about Andrew Tate.
Yeah, you can say that Trump is a felon because he is one.
Interesting.
Justice.
But Doug, the trick is like we allowed this person back into our country when he was accused of being a sex trafficker. You got two people that you allow back into your country. One of them is an accused sex trafficker and the other is not. All things being equal, which one do you allow back into your country?
Yes, it's the most pathetic win, isn't it? Where he's like, well, you can say Trump's a felon, but you can't say Andrew Tate's a convicted felon. Interesting.
And since he's the president and Tate's not, then Tate gets in. Like, I didn't realize. Thank you, Nate. I didn't understand it. Now I do.
But it's just the fact that that's the win. The win is like, well, you can't technically say he's a felon yet, so I win. Haha. Like, how is that a win? Like, you're defending some guy whose like arms are full of fucking like steroid needle injections, who's promoting terror, like just always promoting like terrorism, violence against women, has trafficked all these women, some of them underage, all this, like it's just awful. Like he's a scam artist as well. Like his Hustlers University thing is just a complete scam. Like why defend that? Well, technically he's not been prosecuted yet.
The second one, in terms of protecting the innocent and vulnerable, so Josh highlighted some issues with respect to pro-life concerns. I would point out from a pro-life lens that Robert F. Kennedy is now the HHS secretary, and his nomination was opposed, among others, by Mike Pence, because when he was running for president a year ago, he was openly in support of the restoration of Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, it's interesting. Trump is willing to have basically Democrats in his administration.
I would also just note as a sidebar.
Can't argue with that.
There were a lot before 20 minutes ago. There were a lot of Republicans that were pro Roe v. Wade, because Roe v. Wade's statutory argument is based on libertarian values. It's
but is
based
the
on
name
a right
Kennedy?
to.
Is the name Kennedy then basically a Democrat?
Sure. Yeah. Well, any of them that agree with it now are basically socialists, and the babies of Mao. Like, oh my God, the fucking fuck. Doug has the memory of like a fucking guppy.
Pardon the pun here in a moment, but RFK is a lawyer who's the head of the HHS, which is like having a doctor be the head of the American Bar Association.
And he'll probably get way more done than the previous guy.
And he's a well-known anti.
Prove it.
Like, no, he's technically right. Like, he will probably cause so many more deaths than the previous guy ever could have.
This is like a joke that I heard from, I think it was from Saturday Night Live. Like, yeah, this guy's nomination did more, for this thing than anybody else in history. And it's like, yeah, well, Bin Laden did more for like airport security than anybody else in history. Like, I mean, it depends on how we're rating things.
Vaxxer, and I think in terms.
Now, this sort of thing kind of bothers me. He's a well-known anti-vaxxer. Randall, is that fact or is that opinion?
Absolutely.
It's a fucking fact. Jesus fucking Christ. It is a fucking fact. RFK Jr. has been a fucking lunatic about vaccines for a long fucking time.
He was deeply involved with the original attempt at getting the various vaccines banned, because there was this proposed mechanism of like ethyl something crossing the blood-brain barrier, and it was like one of the most researched things ever.
Yeah. And they were like, everybody was like, no, that's not a fucking thing. He's like, it's too new. No, it's not. It's more than 15 years old. mRNA technology keeps getting researched. They've been working on it for nearly 20 years. He's like, oh, you're just going to wheel out this brand new technology with no testing. Like, we've been testing it for almost 2 full.
Well, you're talking about the mRNA stuff, though. But like when people say anti-vax, they mean the original vaccines cause autism thing, right?
Sure, you're right. I'm just getting on the mRNA thing. But yeah, he freaks out about flu.
But the whole vaccines cause autism, like that is what anti-vax is, and RFK was directly involved in that. Like that was him.
He was directly. In fact, one of the concerns is that he benefits because if he's appointed, well, he was appointed, as the Secretary of Health, he had to. The idea was, well, you need to divest yourself from the lawsuit where you are a plaintiff against a health company based on their vaccine delivery, and they had basically had to browbeat him into it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so fucking stupid. Like, so the fact that Doug is like, well, hey, you got any proof that he's anti-vax? Yep, it's been adjudicated. He has been adjudicated as a vaccine skeptic.
I know this was it. So the original myth was that it was mercury in vaccines that cause autism, and
the thimerosal.
And the origin of this was a 2005 Rolling Stone and Salon, co-published in both of them, written by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That stated this. So he's like the OG source for promoting this conspiracy theory in the public consciousness.
He was so influential for a while that when he would do some of his public speeches and stuff, he had other celebrities that had glommed onto him. Jenny, what's her name? She was the Playboy playmate, the blonde.
That doesn't help me figure it out.
Sorry. I'm thinking of I'm trying to think of her cousin, the actress, the funny one. But she was really into it. I think she kind of got Donnie Wahlberg into it because she was dating Donnie Wahlberg for a time. Jim Carrey was into it for a while because she was dating Jim Carrey before Donnie Wahlberg. Robert De Niro has been into it for a while. So yeah, it's been a thing. It's been a problem. So this idea that he's just trying to say, like, hey, is there any proof of that? Yep.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. Is it's so bad. Like, if you know anything about this stuff, which you probably should, if you're like commenting on it to the degree Doug is, like, you should have your basic ducks in a row. Like, you should know those sorts of things. And he's like, oh, it's just another, like, he's trying to just insinuate just another liberal lie or whatever. Like, as if people have just invented this out of thin air as a story to promote or something. No, like, there's repeated over and over again him saying this stuff.
Right. I gotta say, Tom, what's the credible evidence for Trump persecuting people? Why don't you talk to the students from Columbia? They got snatched up by ICE because they protested against what was going on in Gaza. What's the credible evidence that he's persecuting people? He's a piece of shit.
What was the what was that sickening video called? It was like White House ASMR or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, that was fucking sick.
Which was the clinging of the chains. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Chupacabra. Jenny McCarthy. Yeah, I was thinking Melissa McCarthy. I was thinking Melissa, but I could not figure out the last name. Jenny McCarthy. She was the Playboy playmate that was really into the whole autism is caused by thimerosal, and she dated Jim Carrey for a while. He was kind of into it, and then he kind of fell away from it, but she kept going.
Really think about it before you answer that question. Is that fact or is that opinion? Could someone say things like he's not anti-vax, but he's pro-safe vax?
No.
And voluntary vaccination.
Yeah, but everyone who's anti-vax is pro-safe vax. They just think none of this.
Yeah, he doesn't understand. Like, anybody that's even the vaccine makers are pro-safe vax. The idea behind any kind of medication is, do the risks, do the rewards outweigh the risks? That's the whole point. And for the most part, even in the case of like flu vaccines, I think you get Guillain-Barré like 0.02% of the time out of hundreds of thousands of flu shots delivered every year. It can happen. That's bad. It's negative. But you reduce the risk of flu.
Is that the same thing as saying anti-vax? Does saying that maybe some vaccinations should be off the market and others on, does that make one anti-vax? It depends how you define it, right? I mean,
profound.
This is a way to demonize people that I think is very unfair.
Demonize?
It depends.
And I say unfair because that's something.
So it's okay to demonize a scientifically derived product. That's fine without any proof or backup. But the person that did the demonizing, you should not do that to them.
Yeah.
Neat. That's interesting. I find that interesting.
And also, like, the other thing is all the stuff that he's been promoting about, like, saying, Wi-Fi causes leaky brains. Like, he said that on Joe Rogan. He still kind of says that stuff. They're talking about like crashes and stuff. Spreading immunity, like, in terms of the public health advice he's putting out, it is harmful and it's getting people killed. Like, and so to say, oh, this is just some kind of like smear campaign, that's not true. Like, there is a direct causal relationship between someone's like kid dying of measles and RFK in the role that he's in with the decision-making power that he's got.
Yeah. Oh, Tangela says, a miracle happened. You're not talking about Darth, and you claim miracles don't happen, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I have this is number 5 in a series, Tangela. It's number 5 in a series. So please read better.
Sounds pretty cool, though.
Quality traits in progressives like.
What's that?
It sounds pretty cool if a miracle happened, though.
It would have been cool. No.
They like this idea of fairness.
In terms of protecting the health of communities, that is a significant concern, especially with the continued spread of measles right now.
Yeah, why are measles spreading right now, Randall, in Texas?
Because of unvaccinated Mennonites, you stupid piece of shit. You Mennonite motherfucker. Your kind came down here and spread your raw milk drinking fucking spittoon ways. You came down here, you kept rubbing your hands in your crotch, and then you'd shake your hands with your dick smelling hands. Yeah, you did. That's how we got fucking measles, you bitch. Nate, you want to weigh in on this? Sorry.
Yeah,
I may have gone a little bit overboard.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I mean, I think that's basically it. Is just it's like I don't know what he's going to come out with. I'm guessing there's some like Tucker Carlson like apologetic or something around this of like, well, actually, it's liberal reporting saying there's measles, but they're painting those spots on themselves. I don't know what he's going to come out with, but like,
yeah,
it's 100%.
every time a Latina cries a tear of empathy, 5 kids get measles.
The CDC's been saying this for a while, right? About like worries about, I mean, don't say it anymore, but they've been saying for the past few years these concerns about lack of like uptake of vaccines in various populations, and that measles is like a big problem for that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, immigrants. That's actually probably what I'll go with. YouTube Punk saying in the chat. Yeah, I'll say it's the southern border. It's because we're not defending the southern border.
Yeah.
Why? Could it be illegal immigration?
Example would be Elon Musk unilaterally shutting down USAID.
Elon Musk.
Does he think that measles are up because of illegal immigration, even though they were touting that illegal immigration numbers were record down?
Yeah, that's true as well. But
how the fuck does that work? Like, there's hardly anybody coming over. Like, nobody was coming over after the election results. And then after January 21st, it was even smaller. He was actually like, there were newspaper articles talking about how Trump was pissed off. They didn't have enough like illegal captures happening at the border because nobody was attempting to cross over. Mostly because the one thing both administrations were right about is that any of the coyote operations were just like, yeah, no, it's not a great time to go.
Well, let me tell you about this as well that I just found. March 14th, 2025, Mexico reports 22 measles cases after US outbreak. So in the US, there's 350 cases or whatever in like Texas and some more in New Mexico. And then in Mexico itself, there's 22. So if it's spreading from Mexico to the US, why is it the case that there's only 22 cases in Mexico and there's all these cases in the US?
That's a good one. So, yeah. So for him, yeah, if he's trying to say like, oh, well, the reason it's spreading here is because of the diseased immigrants. I think the diseased immigrants are the Canadians. He brought that's the reason I'm losing my hair. He brought that disease here. It was fucking Manitoba melanoma or whatever it is.
Has no power to shut down anything. Like progressives need to get this through their thick skull. Elon Musk is acting as an advisor.
What's that?
I was just saying this is the other thing he loves at the minute as well, is to say they have no power and we can do what we want because we have power. Like this is his favorite point, is to be like, yeah, we have the power, and it just to dwell on the exertion of power and how no one can do anything about it. It's like, yeah, Doug, like this is exactly why someone's going to put a fucking like rifle in one of these guys' heads, like because of this idiot. Like you shouldn't be celebrating this. Like
I gotta say, I have to say, one of the things that I really like, and I'm glad you brought this up because I really did like this. One of the things that you had brought up watching some of this stuff was trying to tell him, like, if a lot of these avenues are cut off in terms of being able to communicate, in terms of being able to negotiate, and the only recourse is violence, then what do you do? and Doug seemed to be just okay with it.
Yeah, it's
like-
it's like it's just
Yeah, it was-
crazy to me that he's not seeing that that's what it is. Like the options that he's given people are like be abused or like stand up for yourself, basically, right? And like, what option do you think people are going to end up taking?
Yeah, exactly. Good night, Tom. Thanks for watching. Jeffy, nice hat. Thank you. I got this because I thought it made me feel a little bit more Central American. This is made out of coffee bags from Brazil and the
It
Caribbean.
looks like shroud linen.
Shroud linen. Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah. I liked it quite a bit when I bought it. It's actually a New Zealand company. When I saw it, I was like, those are very cool. You can't pick the pattern. They just like fashion them out of the bags. They send you whatever you get. So yeah. I thought they were pretty cool. It's actually a really comfortable hat. Unblock him, please. Did I have anybody blocked? John, let me know if I've got anybody blocked that I should. Maybe I did that. All right, let's play this.
To the Trump administration. So he says, I think you should shut down this. And then the administration said either agrees or disagrees. And Trump and Elon, when they were campaigning together, basically said, we're going to do this. Elon's going to do this.
Oh, they did
He's
not
going to
really.
seek out waste and fraud. And that's what we're going to do.
Nah,
And it seems like the American people who voted for Trump are okay with that.
Musk, after making a $250 billion donation.
Okay, go ahead, Nate.
It's just that's a very that wasn't like what Trump ran on or anything. It was like I forget how soon it was, but it was only like a few weeks before the election, and they never really made it clear exactly. You know, they threw out the idea of having this Department of Government Efficiency, but they never said we're going to go in and literally completely dismantle everything without Congress's approval and like take everyone's social security numbers and like duplicate all the data and have all these like random kids intervening with the tech systems and stop the entire USAID. Like imagine if they never said that we'll stop the entire USAID program or something like that before beginning any of this. None of this was on the cards. That there was an idea of efficiency, but not of just like reckless destroy everything and make a political story out of it.
Yeah.
What? Musk never made a $250 billion donation. I think he just misspoke. It's $250 million.
To the Trump campaign has now
nothing. $250 million for a guy who has 400 billion? That's chicken feed.
Been tasked as an unelected bureaucrat by another billionaire, which looks to me very much like plutocracy. USAID was founded in 1961 to bring together foreign aid assistance programs under one agency. They distribute $40 billion annually in programs, including global health, education, and food.
Yeah, this is a big thing for people who lean left, who are progressives, who are very feminine. They will, like, what about the children? What about the people dying? And to this I say,
if you are a husband and a provider, aren't you supposed to give a shit about your kid?
Yeah, but not anybody else's. I ain't pay. Why would I pay for them?
Yeah, like I go out every day and I punch the heads off any of the kids that I see in the neighborhood, and I feed their blood to my kids to make them stronger and more durable.
Jesus Christ, like, this is Doug's secular version of. I don't know if you saw that tweet where that guy said it's like the liberal sin of empathy, where it's like, yeah, what is this bizarre disdain for compassion? Like, I mean, yes, you can make rational arguments for why you should exhibit compassion to people, right? Like whether it's going to be that it will bring about economic stability, that globalized trade means we can all flourish a little bit more, that there's less wars because there's there's more to it. Like you can make these rational arguments, but I think just the general point of like valuing people as well and not wanting them to like not wanting like 700 of them to die of HIV every day when you know you can solve that for less than 0.1% of your budget. It seems kind of like just a no-brainer. Like why do it just so someone doesn't call you feminine? Like I mean, okay, call me feminine, I'll save the 700 lives. Like
Yeah. How dare you tell me I look chesty in my polo? Like what? Like, yeah. So I do have to bring this up. Maya says, what the hell is Jeff wearing? I'm wearing this hat and a t-shirt. Elon Musk Discord Twinks. Let's see.
with the broccoli cut as well. That's the worst part of it.
If Doug gives in to compassion, he has less fun. That's brutal. That's probably true too.
If U.S. aid is doing some really good things, and if they're gutted and slashed by the evil doers like called Elon Musk,
okay, yeah,
and the Trump administration, then start up GoFundMe accounts, and why don't the Democrats in the United States fund it?
Oh yeah, that's just the most retarded.
This is the Christian equivalent of like, hey, you know what? If Social Security can't match it, let's just do this with charity.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good analogy that it's kind of like I remember. I mean, maybe this is a bad analogy, but I remember like when I was around like 14 or 15 years old, like having an argument with my parents where they weren't like treating me right in some way, and you know their point was like, you know, well, if you want to eat healthy food, then like get your own job and do it. It's like, hang on, no, like the situation that we're in terms of like you've got income, money, it's nothing to you, it's so easy. It's like it's your obligation and duty to do that. Like, yeah, of course, in principle, like I could do that, and when I'm an adult, I will provide for myself perfectly fine. But you know, the situation is such a way that that's just like the dumbest thing ever to say. Like, why don't you do it this other way?
I'm trying to thrive, and you just want to feed me mac and cheese for 3 meals a day. You're right. Yeah. Oh, Doug. Jesus, Doug.
Because the point is, it wouldn't be even if it was really bad. There's no guarantee that you can like, you know, you can't just pop up all that infrastructure out of nowhere. You can't like necessarily get the momentum to get people's buy-in to donate to that charity. Like, there's so many problems with.
Yeah.
You can't just swap it out like overnight with a GoFundMe campaign.
Yeah.
It's like saying, why don't you just do a GoFundMe for like Apollo 11 or something? Like, yeah, of course, that's, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to know how. Yeah. Well, I mean, that'll be it's the marketing, right? That's what you're saying.
Well, not just, it's like the institutional knowledge, the relationships that people have with these foreign governments where they do things, you know, in order to effectively do stuff. It's like you've got people who are kind of embedded in those places and communities, so they know people, they know how to set up the infrastructure. You've got the fact that it's coming out of taxes means that you've got this like large amount of money. Whereas if it was like a GoFundMe, you've got to somehow like advertise that to every single American and get their buy-in, so you can actually like get the same amount of money raised again. It's just like nothing makes any sense about doing it that way.
Yeah, but that's what they want to tell you is that's more efficient, though, right?
Yeah, because
it's more efficient.
Private companies,
yeah, it's faster, it's quicker. Yeah, that's like, yeah, I have a feeling that it has more overhead, and that overhead is where you make your money. So, all right. Well, I think I'm gonna end this here. We're at about 3 hours. So yeah. Thanks, Ben, for showing up. I really do appreciate that you popped in. I know you've got like your own take on Doug's rightward-ish turn. Like, I mean, he's always kind of been there, but yeah.
Yeah, I think he's on some kind of weird power trip, and it doesn't look good because he's sort of fetishizing injustice at the minute. Is what I'm seeing is like he's really getting off on like this nasty hurting people or seeing people's lives be ruined and stuff. I just think that's really grim. But.
Yeah, it's grim and it's weird, and I find it like the entire thing seems very stupid. But his attitude has just sucked the last 2 years.
Mm.
It's been an absolute atrocity. Like before, it was like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll take that into consideration, kind of thing. And now it's just like, hey, you're a fucking cuck, kind of thing. It's just like, dude, what the ass? Like,
yeah. But
like,
when you take into account, the COVID vaccine made him feel sick for 1 day, so it all kind of balances out.
And with that, we'll leave it.
Yeah, cool, sure. Well, thanks, everyone. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, have a good night, man. Take care. All right, folks, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to wrap this thing up. So like and subscribe, share, and all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry this one went on for so long, and it was so rambling and everything, and we barely got into this, just under 30 minutes of this video. I might cover more of this later or cover highlights of it later, but we'll see what we can do after the fact. So like, subscribe, or if you've got suggestions, email me, jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com, and we'll talk later. I'll be back.